I'd like to welcome everybody to this evening's town board meeting, Monday, December 4th, 2023. I'm going to forego an invocation this evening and ask everybody to please stand for a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I'd ask our town clerk to please call roll.
Supervisor Copa.
Yeah, here.
Deputy Supervisor Buckeye.
Here.
Councilmember Berger.
Here.
Councilmember Lavin.
Present.
And Councilmember Zuccalla.
Here.
First item on our agenda is approval of minutes from Thursday, November 9, 2023. A motion to adopt those as they appeared. All in favor?
Aye.
Next item is the approval of minutes from Monday, November 13, 2023. A motion to adopt those as they appeared as well.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we have a number of public hearings this evening. For whatever it's worth, if you're here for Resolution 623, it's being adjourned tonight. I'm going to take these out of order. Resolution 956 is a continuation of a public hearing. I'm sorry, not for 956. 910 is a continuation of a public hearing on local law amending Chapter 121, Historic Preservation. Motion to reopen the public hearing at this time.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
There was a presentation and some response 2 weeks ago. Is there anything further comment-wise on the record regarding the proposed local law this evening?
I thought we were having the representatives from Historic Preservation to.
They're here.
I know they're here. I thought they were going to talk about it a little.
We could do that.
No? Okay.
Sue, do you want to come up, please?
Sue. This is Sue Palmer, and she's our
Sue
chairman.
Palmer is the chairwoman of Historic Preservation Commission.
Good
Sue.
evening. I'm really here just to answer any questions that you might have on the statute, as well as Brian
Brian
Swartz, who's also a commission member.
All right.
I wasn't
Thank
here
you
for
for
the
being here today. We appreciate it.
I wasn't here for the initial preservation presentation, so I'm not sure what you'd like to know, but I'm here to answer any questions.
Most of the changes are clarifications within the local law itself and setting some thresholds. But do you want to, Brian, maybe just or Sue, give us a little bit of an overview of what the amendments look like?
Well, what I can tell you is maybe a bit of the background on why we did what we did, okay? It was about 3 years ago, we were advised by a consultant that we were using from Preservation Buffalo Niagara there was initially one kind of clear item that was missing from our statute, which was in the section dealing with the criteria for certificates of appropriateness. We did not have a reference to the Secretary of the Interior standards. It was very vague. And so she suggested that we incorporate that, but then also noticed the fact that the law had not been updated in quite a while, consistent with the new model law that is out with the State Historic Preservation Office. And many municipalities had updated their statutes and ours had not been updated. So we started the process going through it with the town attorney's office, and the SHPO also reviewed what we came up with to basically make the statute more consistent with the model law, and also recommended changes, and also more consistent with other statutes in other municipalities. We took a look at the Village of Williamsville, we took a look at Lancaster, West Seneca, and others in our process. And so that's basically what we did, and that's what you have in front of you.
Thank you.
Is there any further questions from the board at this time?
No, I just would like to compliment Sue, Brian, and the members of Historic Preservation. I've been working with them on this, although they were the lead, work group. But as a liaison from the town board, I know they worked on it very hard. They were very specific about language. Sue is an attorney by profession, so she knows that words really do matter. And her leadership was exemplary on this work group, and I appreciate her dedication and that of everybody on historic preservation. This was not an easy task, but people just kept forging through it, and this is the result of a lot of work of what you see here. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I can just add one other thing. If you were to pull up the model law, it wasn't like we just copied anyone else's statute. We really spent like over 2 years thinking about the fact that we're every municipality, we're the town of Amherst, and therefore we did try to tailor this to this town as opposed to just coming up with something that a state office would want us to do. So you'll see not everything is exactly the way they wanted it. We felt it was important to have it be something that fits the town of Amherst.
All right, thank you, I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Is there anything further from the audience regarding the? Seeing none, I'm going to motion to close the public hearing and set a decision date for December 18th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next item on the agenda is public hearing, Resolution 955 on a planned unit development for Amherst Central Park. I'm going to motion to open the public hearing at this time.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. I'm going to ask Dan Howard, our planning director, to please present the.
I'll get it in.
Good evening, Town Board. Dan Howard, Planning Director. I'm here tonight with Daniel Witowski, who is the Assistant Planning Director and the town's Zoning Enforcement Officer, and Jeff Sikowski, the town's Landscape Architect, and the staff planner in our office, who's primarily responsible for working with this project. So we're pleased to be here tonight to talk about the planned unit development for the Amherst Central Park. Next slide, please. Got it. I'll figure it out eventually. Okay, for geographic reference, the park is located, or will be located, on the old Westwood Golf Course grounds. It's located at the corner of North Forest Road and Sheridan Drive, and stretches up as far as Maple Road, just opposite the Audubon Golf Course. This location here, centrally located within the town. What we're asking you to do is to adopt a planned unit development, or PUD plan, for the conversion of the, so I guess I can try. Okay, how's that? Okay, great. Wow. Okay, so again, this park is located on the old Westwood Golf Course Country Club at the corner of North Forest and Maple and North Forest and Sheridan Drive. Again, it's the conversion of that into a park and a recreational complex that includes cultural, recreational, and civic spaces. It's 170 acres in size, and the town of Amherst is the petitioner. So, planned unit development is a process that is required for development or redevelopment of parcels and lots measuring 30 acres or more in size. The purpose of the planned unit development process, or a development plan, is to permit coordinated development that allows flexibility in order to respond to changes in the market, needs of the town in this case, the community. This PUD takes place on a large project site. We'll have multiple components, and Jeff will explain those in a little bit, implemented over a period of time. So the PUD gives the town a chance to plan the improvements and program them appropriately. The PUD is permitted pursuant to the town zoning code, section 6-9-2, and under the 6-9-2, the town board intends to adjust some of the regulations, standards, and the criteria of the zoning ordinance as part of this process to implement the park plan. The proposed PUD plan is the product of a multi-year participatory planning process involving, well, I can't really talk any louder. I'm not going to scream in the microphone. So, yeah. Okay.
Unfortunately, it's our sound system. If everyone's really quiet, you'll be able to hear better.
Just everybody stop. We're not gonna start doing this.
Okay, I'm gonna try
Going
this again. If we can have, I'm gonna try this again.
Go ahead, Dan.
Okay. So again, this plan proposes a multi-use park featuring natural resources, a community center for activities related to environmental education, fine arts, active and passive recreation, and historic preservation. The park provides a place for people to connect and interact in a shared environment and brings environmental, civic, and recreation benefits to the town. The area envisioned for the ACP, or Amherst Central Park, has long been designated for recreation and open space, as proposed in the PUD plan. Again, I mentioned it's a former golf course and country club that included golf, tennis, swimming, and other civic uses associated with the clubhouse. The property is recommended as recreation open space and greenways in the town's comprehensive plan, and it's also a component of the town's local waterfront revitalization program plan. The park, with its location along Ellicott Creek, is a featured project for recreation, culture, and arts, civic and community facilities, and waterfront enhancement in the town. I'm going to be followed by Jeff Sikowski, who will provide some insight into the different components of the plan.
Yes, my name is Jeff Sikowski. I'm the town landscape architect. On your right, you'll see the aerial of the existing Westwood Country Club. The boundary that's in yellow is the 170-acre parcel. On the left is the conceptual development plan. This is what's in front of the board today to take action on. On the 170-acre site, about 60 acres approximately is in the southern area, which is in the box, the red box area. North of that is all passive recreation. So north of that red box area is only passive recreation. It's mainly open space and other low passive type recreation activities. In the northern area, there will be no roadway going through it. There will be a park drive along the center of the road. It's in a ring-like loop type configuration. And on the southern area is the more active location with civic, cultural, arts, community facilities, and other recreation, active and passive amenities on the parcel. You'll also see it's bounded by North Forest, Sheridan Drive, Frankhauser to the west, and then Maple Road to the north. Most of the activity will be taking place along the North Forest and Sheridan Drive intersection. So this is the southern half of the conceptual development plan in front of you today. The existing features that, I don't know if I could point to it, but the existing features right now that exist will be the entrance off of North Forest. That will remain in place. It'll be reconfigured to meet the county's requirements. And the other existing feature will be the existing clubhouse and the existing pavilion building, which is in the center of the site, just northwest of the clubhouse. Nearly everything else will be proposed or added to the site. In total, there's at least 25 acres of impervious added to it. The three main structures on the site are the existing clubhouse, the theater building, and the Buffalo Niagara Heritage Village. The Buffalo Niagara Heritage Village is further to the west. It's over on Frankhauser, just north of that large pond. What you'll see is that the parking lot east of the clubhouse, the existing parking lot, will be expanded. And then to the south of that will be the more recreation amenities with the splash pad, the winter market area, the accessible playground, and the restroom / skate park, skate ribbon in the lower southeast corner of the site. Along the Sheridan Drive area, the trees, for the most part, remain intact. The new proposal there will be an entry or an access point off of Sheridan Drive. On the Frankhauser side, which is on the west, there will be an access point for pedestrians and bicycles only over by the Fairways Drive, Frankhauser intersection. The other main features on the site would be the theater building, just on a state that's a theater building, and then there's an outdoor amphitheater and a pavilion to the north where the existing topography drops off. To the east, along the eastern boundary, will be a new maintenance facility. In total, there'll be parking around the site, but there'll be a lot of shared parking options. For the other amenities on site, we'll have playgrounds, outdoor education. There'll be gardens, a garden facility, indoor what do you call it?
Greenhouse.
Greenhouse. Yeah, thanks. A number of different types of trails for biking, walking, and hiking, running. Within that space, which is in the central part of the site, which is north of here, you'll notice that there will be small parking areas that will be available to people to park and walk directly to the recreation features. And then the other alteration that will exist is that on the southern area where the theater building is a wetland. It's a linear wetland going across the site. That will be augmented during the facility improvement plan phase, and we'll account for stormwater runoff, and it'll also be a decorative pond within the site. In the southern area, the majority of the trees will be removed here, and most of the activity disturbance will take place in this area. Again, that northern section, that area will not be as disturbed and will remain intact other than passive recreation amenities. And I'll turn it over for land use to the zoning enforcement officer, Dan Ulatowski.
Thank you, Jack. Can everyone hear me okay? Yes. Thank you. As the planning director indicated, the plan unit development process allows for the town board to adjust regulations of the zoning ordinance. The plan unit development provisions within the zoning ordinance allow the town board to adjust provisions in the zoning ordinance to implement the desired plan. Provisions to be adjusted for the Amherst Central Park project include types of land uses that will be adjusted, including the harboring of livestock, the keeping of bees associated with the Living Museum as part of the BNHV area will be permitted. Additionally, other uses that will be adjusted, retail sales associated with the public plaza, winter market vendor area will be permitted. Any accessory restaurant or cafe associated with the theater will be permitted. Any accessory concession or food services will be permitted as part of the converted clubhouse, skate rental building, amphitheater, or the BHNV building. Uses not enclosed within a building, including the amphitheater and the ice ribbon, shall also be permitted as part of the plan unit development approval process. In addition to uses being adjusted by the town board as part of the plan unit development process, the approval process will also be adjusted. Currently, site plan approval by the planning board will not occur. Such review of individual facility improvement plans will be conducted by a new staff committee with a recommendation to the town board for final approval and authorization of a facility improvement plan to implement the components of the overall plan. Types of development standards will also be adjusted, particularly signage to allow for flexible, coordinated sign plan and wayfinding for building identification. With that, I'll turn it back over to the planning director, Dan Howard.
Okay. Dan mentioned something that I'll go into a little bit more depth here, is the ACP, or Amherst Central Park Facility Improvements Review process. Because the town board is the lead agency on most of the development of the park, in fact, all of it, they're also responsible for funding the different projects. The idea here is to permit the town board to have approval authority for the individual component plans that make up the park. And so the process I'm going to outline to you would be implemented in support of that. Pursuant to Section 6-9-2, the town board establishes criteria, standards, and regulations with respect to planning of land and the arrangements of building and open spaces within the PUD. And this is one of the reasons why they will have that authority moving forward. The facility improvement plans, such as buildings, roads, and parking areas, will be reviewed and approved by the town board. The town board will establish an Amherst Central Park planning team to support that review, and that will include but not be limited to the director of facilities, the town engineer, town architect, building commissioner, planning director, and a police fire representative, and others that are expected to provide technical and administrative support. These are the folks who generally have input to the town's site plan approval process. It'll be the same people that will be advising the town board that advise the planning board now. This slide outlines that process. I'll go through each step quickly. Projects will be initiated by the Director of Facilities, probably with some direction from the town board and/or budgeting instruments that are in place, the capital improvement program or others. The Director of Facilities will direct the planning team to commence the design of the improvement. The Director of Facilities and the Planning Director will determine the level of review, major or minor, and prepare an application for the project. The Planning Department will prepare and distribute an application packet to the various members of the team and other agencies for comments and recommendations. Planning Department will post the ACP application as a pending development project on the town's website, much like we do today, and arrange for a sign to be posted within the park at an appropriate location, much as we do today. The Amherst Central Park team will meet to review the application and comments and make any corresponding revisions to the application. And the team will then prepare a recommendation and endorsement of the application for the town board to consider. I would note that there could be major and minor improvements. Minor improvements may be such as smaller than 4,000 square feet. Those may be approved as administrative by the planning director. Planning director always has the option of referring those to the town board. The planning department then prepares a report of the ACP team recommendations, an endorsement of a seeker determination, and forwards those to the town clerk. And then the town clerk will then place it on a town board agenda for their consideration. If required by law, the town board will conduct a public hearing or at its discretion, both for funding and for the improvement. The town board will issue a seeker determination and then make a decision to implement the project, after which the Director of Facilities will prepare a final design and any permit application materials to execute the project. So a very similar process to what we follow on site plan that would go forward with the Central Park and the PUD application. Just a little insight on where we've been. The planning board held a public hearing on this project back in November and recommended the conceptual development plan for approval by the town board. We're here tonight on our public hearing on the PUD plan with the town board. There is an environmental impact statement, a draft statement that's been prepared, and a final statement that's been prepared. The town board may issue a final supplemental generic environmental impact statement endorsement tonight, followed by perhaps a decision on supplemental findings to the EIS and a decision on the PUD to come. Those could happen around December 18th. Too many buttons. So if anyone has any comments or questions that they want to mail into the town, I'd be happy to take those in my office. With that, that concludes our presentation.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Dan, for that. We have a couple of, so I'm going to open it up to audience participation on the Central Park concept. There are some speakers who have signed in for that.
Or I think 4 or 5.
Is there a community representative that's been appointed? Jennifer asked you to come forward first. So just by order of public hearings, the rules for public hearing, community representative has 15 minutes. Speakers after that have 3 minutes. The clerk will ring a bell when you get to 2 minutes and 30 seconds. And everybody is asked to please state your name and address for record, and then go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Jennifer Snyder Haas, and I live at 185 Fairways Boulevard. First and foremost, the town has not properly followed the correct procedure for a planned unit development. It has submitted a mere concept plan, not a final detailed site plan, for approval. And critically, it has not applied for what would be the necessary rezoning of the property. The property is currently zoned Recreation Conservation. This zoning designation does not include an indoor theater and museum. Without rezoning, the entire application is not legally valid. This begs the question, why would the town need to create a planned unit development and rezone to create a park in an existing recreation conservation zoning district? The purpose of a recreation conservation district is to provide for public, private, and civic uses related to recreation and conservation. Isn't this exactly what a park does? Further, the town's bicentennial comprehensive plan recommends that the property be used for recreation, open space, and greenways. Clearly, the construction of an indoor theater of over 30,000 square feet with extensive pavement for parking, and the construction of another building of over 30,000 square feet for a museum, along with livestock and poultry displays in a residential neighborhood, do not support these objectives. Let's call it. These are not in furtherance of a public park to benefit residents. They are ways to throw building projects to developers who fund political campaigns. Worse, this is a taxpayer expense with a whopping 11% tax increase just recently voted for by this board, as well as the loss of valuable green space. We are repeatedly told that development builds the tax base, yet we are always paying more and losing our land in the process. Developers win, taxpayers and residents lose. The planned unit development application also falls woefully short in its alleged consideration of alternative uses and sites. It falsely makes the prior massive mixed-use proposal for the property, which called for extensive commercial and residential development, as an alternative choice. This completely inappropriate proposal was voted down by the town board several years ago as inconsistent with the town comprehensive plan. Thus, it's not a real alternative. It's just a straw man set up by this board to deflect the deficiencies and inconsistencies in its own plan. Incredibly, Section 3.4 of the draft environmental impact statement for alternative sites states the following. While some of the proposed improvements in the Amherst Central Park could be provided in other areas of the town, there is no other parcel or combination of parcels owned by the town that would offer a suitable combination of location, existing natural beauty, overall location, and potential for a cohesive, comprehensive park plan that would be comparable to the proposed Amherst Central Park. This alternative is therefore not further evaluated. I really had to shake my head at this. As a member of the Amherst Central Park Task Force, I can tell you that the Audubon parcel across the street from the Westwood property on Maple, itself over 200 acres, was extensively considered as part of the Amherst Central Park. In fact, this property was to include the active recreation parts of the park, including much-needed spaces for pickleball, cricket, and softball. Detailed maps were presented to the task force. This made sense, as Maple Road is not nearly as heavily trafficked as Sheridan Drive, is closer to the State University at Buffalo North Campus, has ample space for parking, and is not surrounded by residential homes. It also has better access to the creek. Moreover, the town alienated 90 acres of parkland on Audubon already and allowed the construction of a large medical office complex on the property, with plans of housing and commercial development anticipated on the remaining alienated acreage to help pay for the park. The town's application does not address any of this at all. and provides for practically no athletic activities in a central park. Moreover, Buffalo Niagara Heritage Village is currently located next to town-owned land. Incredibly, the town has failed to provide any discussion about its expansion in its current location. This is particularly glaring considering the proposed costs of relocating the village is upwards of $7 million, with no realistic chance of recouping this investment. And the museum is currently located in a far more suitable non-residential location. The draft environmental impact statement takes great pains to document that much public engagement was done in concocting this current plan. This is not the reality. I joined the task force in good faith, believing it would be a collaborative process. Members were asked for their ideas, but these were never considered. In fact, at a meeting with architects Dover and Cole, I asked whether our ideas were reviewed. Supervisor Kolpa told me that he was not even going to pretend that he shared our ideas with the architects. It's true. All along, I urged that a cost-benefit analysis be done to make the park elements affordable, but this never got off the ground. And look where we are now, an 11% tax increase with no discernible plan for paying for non-park elements that the residents do not even want on the parcel. I must also note that the current plans do not even reflect what was proposed at the task force meetings. There was no Buffalo Niagara Heritage Village relocation to Westwood. The location of musical fair was to be close to the clubhouse, not hulking over the front of the heavily trafficked Sheridan Drive. There was no proposed vehicular entrance to the park off Sheridan Drive. This has all been done behind closed doors. The proposal notes that a traffic signal should be considered at the proposed park entrance across from Fenwick at the Amherst Central Park driveway on Sheridan Drive due to long delays in vehicle queues expected at the site driveway and at Fenwick Road located across the driveway. There are already long queues at Sheridan and Frankhauser where there is already a traffic signal. The plan does not indicate whether a signal at Fenwick would result in the removal of the signal at Frankhauser, which would of course have significant negative effects for the residents utilizing the existing light. Also, to accommodate this new proposed location for the theater, the town plans on disturbing the waterway running across the southern portion of the property, acknowledging that the canal feature located in the southwestern portion of the property and identified in the Central Park Plan for expansion into a larger pond may be subject to federal and state permitting if that water is connected to other waters, and the outlet of the canal feature and discharge location of those waters would be identified to determine any regulatory requirements, which could include enhancement of other wetlands on site, off-site mitigation, or other mitigation as required by the Army Corps of Engineers and/or the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. This is more destruction of natural features and more taxpayer expense. Even worse, the architects that the town has been paying to draw plans for years now were not even able to answer a resident's recent questions about the latest version, telling her that the town had made significant changes to the map since they had last seen it. So I don't know, is the town not even working with its paid professionals anymore and coming up with the plan? Do you have to wonder with whom the town is working? And residents' top desire, connectivity. Despite trail connectivity being the top public desire per the recreation survey the town did, the town has been totally non-responsive to it. The benefits of extending the Ellicott Creek path that currently dead ends at the Audubon Golf Course across Maple and through Westwood, perhaps to Amherst State Park and Glen Park in the village of Williamsville, are numerous and obvious. That should have been the starting point for any Central Park in the Olmsted tradition. Yet the proposed pedestrian bike paths on Westwood do not connect to anything. Repeated suggestions to partner with Go Bike Buffalo to develop connecting trails and seek grants were ignored. Even worse, there is a large loop road in the center of the parcel, for, of all things, vehicular traffic. Although the planned unit development is silent of the effects on wildlife, once traffic is allowed into the interior of the site, it would never be the same. Its natural character would be eliminated. And one wonders why the town is so insistent on a traffic loop in the center of the parcel. My guess is that they're thinking future development down the road. Has Amherst not learned anything from Delaware Park? The city removed traffic from its ring road, recognizing that it did not belong there. Has it not learned anything from Canal Side with the lighter, cheaper, quicker mantra? A theater and a museum and roads can be built anywhere. In fact, in this case, right across the street. Why destroy what the plan calls unparalleled natural beauty and pick taxpayers' pockets for this? This is wholly irresponsible from an environmental and fiscal perspective. Incredibly, as the town unfavorably contrasts its proposal with the grandiose mixed-use alternative, the proposed build-out period is listed as the same 10 years. 10 years of construction for a suburban park in the middle of residential neighborhoods in a high-traffic area. This project is entirely too development-heavy. It does not have to be this way. There are other land options available that would cause significantly less environmental impact for uses that do not belong in this recreation conservation zone property. Frighteningly, it appears that the town is not stopping at the southern end of Westwood for its development plans. Although the draft environmental impact statement purports to preserve 115 acres of the mid to northern section of the parcel as natural space, Section 6.2 reads, "The establishment of thresholds for the future environmental review of related improvements in the Amherst Central Park that are not set forth in this document is an important component of the plan. Examples of possible future related actions, also known as improvements, may include development in the northern section of the property in a manner that is not entirely consistent with the approved conceptual plan. This may occur given that the layout of the improvements as depicted on the conceptual development plan is conceptual in nature. Instead, the layout of improvements as depicted on the conceptual development plan is meant to depict the anticipated components of the park and the maximum potential development that could occur without the need for additional environmental review pursuant to SECRA. The precise layout of improvements will be the subject of an Amherst Central Park application process for this town-owned planned unit development. The future improvements will be reviewed in accordance with the process established in the planned unit development application." And then the document goes on to outline a process that significantly limits review of the town's future actions. This makes one wonder about the town's true intentions for the site. If the town is pledging to keep 115 acres undeveloped, why is there no forever wild guarantee, but rather a mechanism for making further improvements? Draw your own conclusions. So what do residents want? Trail connectivity, water access, athletics, sport, and other recreational opportunities, and beautiful natural surroundings. How about a park that complies with the applicable zoning, with other elements that do not comply move to an appropriate location? How about at least considering making Westwood the golf course, which at least would be revenue producing as opposed to Buffalo Niagara Heritage Village, as part of a larger public park with active recreation, trail connectivity, and more water access on Audubon? We need a reset here before we destroy natural land forever and really hurt the residents by increasing taxes unnecessarily. This plan should not be approved due to the numerous illegalities and deficiencies outlined. Thank you.
There is a sign-in sheet that has some Amherst State, has some, there is a sign-in sheet that has some people signed up to speak about this topic. I'm going to go off of that sign-in sheet first, and then we can return to the to the rest of the open list. So Frank Wepner.
Hi, Frank Wapperer.
Sorry, I
okay.
read it wrong.
My name's Frank Wapperer. I live at 143 Fairways Boulevard. Grew up in Amherst, been a resident all my life. I've been involved with the Westwood discussions since it became a topic. Social Security is getting a 3.2% increase in 2024. Town taxes are going up 11.4%. Taxes, more taxes. How do we keep up? How many more parks does Amherst need? How many are there now? Why do we need anything at all at the Westwood property? We don't. People are sick and tired of these projects sitting at a standstill. Nothing happening. There are plenty of buildings all over Amherst and Western New York. Amherst gives all the tax breaks, incentives, and credits to the developers, not to the citizens. Tax and spend at its finest here in Amherst. Tax and spend. Why not try running the town like you run your household? Maybe you do. Do you spend your own personal money like it will never run out to sustain your household or personal life? I doubt it. I believe I'm like most residents in this town or any municipality for that matter that lives within my means. Not so with bloated town budgets and pork barrel projects. Mr. Culpa and everyone on the town board campaigned as green to protect green space. But it appears spending is out of control, and now you want to make it up on the backs of the taxpayers with 11.4% increase. And I'm sure you have a cogent argument for raising taxes because costs continue to go up. How about cutting other non-fixed costs, trimming fat out of your budget? How about acting like the people you serve? Remember where you came from. I do not want a boulevard mall. I do not want a boulevard mall with eminent domain to help out our favored developer buddies. You're going to like this. Or a Westwood circus park with live farm animals and roads, or new buildings on the Westwood property. I live there. I don't want to smell odor or hear animals. There's no need for roads, yet they're eerily similar to the Mensch developer circular roads right in the middle of the property. What for? You can get any vehicle you want to transverse that property. Just use the multiple miles of existing cart paths that service roads that exist. Why spend money? The benefits of converting Westwood back to the premier golf club it once was are too numerous to ignore. Mr. Culpa appears biased against golf. The possibility of a new golf course was never fleshed out properly to make an informed decision. You did not want a golf course, and were very vocal about that. The fact is, Audubon is more suited for a circus park with lots of space for more buildings and construction projects for developers and donors. Leave Westwood alone, or turn it back into its original form of a country club for regular, normal citizens. The topography, the drainage, irrigation, sand traps, cart paths, clubhouse, and pool all exist. Westwood was a private club that was taken care of very well. A new premier golf course club is more in line with the amenities the town of Amherst deserves. This creates revenue to offset operating expense and hopefully have some profit left over to be profitable well into the future for the town of Amherst. Profit drives industry and the economy, not deficits. My question is, what is the deficit in the town of Amherst? Do we know? That's it.
Okay, Maureen Schmidt. Maureen Schmidt.
Good evening. My name is Maureen Schmidt, and I reside at 866 North Forest. I also own homes at 860 and 850 North Forest. 850 North Forest is directly adjacent to the proposed Amherst Central Park. I have 4 concerns I'd like to express for the record and bring to your attention this evening. The first is a request for an 8-foot-high, maintenance-free fence running the entire property line between 850 North Forest and the park property, specifically 4 feet from the street to the creek. I have lived on North Forest for 37 years and have always enjoyed my privacy, and am concerned that visitors to the park could easily wander into my yard as they meander through the walking and biking paths. I'm asking for 8 foot high so it's not easily scaled, and asking for maintenance-free so the town of Amherst doesn't have to be attentive to regular maintenance such as painting or staining. Next, I would ask that all parking lot and area lighting that is adjacent to my homes be positioned facing away from my properties, that the proposed new maintenance garage that is within 100 feet of my property only has service hours between 7 a.m. and 6 p.m. As many of you know, the residents of North Forest worked very hard with Erie County and the town of Amherst between 1998 and 2008 to retain the character and integrity of North Forest Road. There was talk of widening the road, adding turn lanes, straightening the curves, and adding sidewalks. It was determined by Erie County at that time and approved by the town of Amherst to keep the road as it is. I understand there is not an ingress or egress on Maple Road to the park because of concern that the road would become a north-south thoroughfare, which is something the town doesn't want. I would ask that you consider an entrance on Maple Road to service a parking area for the residents using the walking and biking trails on the northern portion of the park. I'm not requesting a road through the park, but simply an entrance and parking lot off of Maple Road. This would mitigate some of the increased traffic that would be directed onto North Forest now that all the parking for the new park is located off of North Forest and Sheridan Drive. Thank you for your time. Please put my comments in the record.
Thank you. Okay. Mary Ann Hochberg.
Marianne Hochberg, 1075 North Forest Road. I'll just speak a little bit about my comments and concerns about the plan before us. So my first is zoning. Though RC, anything that meets the criteria of PUD will be allowed to go here. As PUD is more intensive than RC, what are the guarantees that would put in place for residents beyond leap of faith? The intent is to adjust the regulations of the zoning ordinance for the PUD process to implement the plan, and future improvements that are not part of the conceptual plan. Purpose of PUD process is to permit coordinated development that allows flexibility to respond to market demands. So these are of concern to me. We need guarantees. BNHF. It comes as a surprise to many that the Buffalo Niagara Heritage Village is incorporated, condensed into a corner of this plan versus being currently located on a 35-acre campus. It is an independent nonprofit corporation. It also begs the question, what is intended to happen with that vacated land? If I lived there, I'd be worried. Sheridan Drive traffic. A second means of vehicular ingress and egress is a must. If Sheridan Drive cannot happen, then it has to be Maple Road. And all efforts should be made so residents of our section, our county section of North Forest, does not bear the brunt of this traffic for this project, which is passive to the north, but pretty busy to the south. Construction phase. We will need a second entrance to be immediately available on Sheridan Drive at the start of construction, so that the North Forest entrance and roadway in general is not the primary means of access. 10-year build-out. Starting at the south end, what is the timeline for passive section of the park? Please don't make us wait 10 years to use a passive section of the park. Intermodal access. I have introduced into the record a letter prepared following a traffic safety gap sidewalk feasibility meeting, December 2020. Residents of North Forest Road, north and south of Sheridan Drive, are represented in the comments regarding pedestrian access to and through the park. You guys have that copy. There doesn't look to be much ingress or egress from the surrounding neighborhoods for pedestrians and bicycles. With Maple Road shut off, our Central Park is not continuous with the Audubon site or the Amherst bike path. I thought that was the main objective. Can there be a Maple Road entrance and parking area for pedestrians, bicycle access on that end as well? Currently, it is not clear what will happen to the parcels on Maple Road as identified for this hearing. It's kind of a mystery. And lastly, I just want to ask you to protect our North Forest historic resources, in specifically 772 North Forest, which is the clubhouse, 829 North Forest, which is identified as a highly important historic structure, state and national level, and the mill race on North Forest Road near the site adjacent to 829 North Forest, which is identified as a significant archaeological site, and which I actually would hope at some point would be added into the historic resources. It's not a house, but it is a significant feature on our roadway, and it's kind of in danger right now through the construction process, should we have to bear the brunt. I think that's everything. I didn't think I'd get through in 3 minutes. I do appreciate time spent on this, and I do appreciate time spent on all the concerns that residents are voicing. Thank you so much.
Okay, so those were the names on the list. I'm going to ask everybody to come up, try to come up one at a time. And again, just state your name and address for record as you come up.
And after you're done speaking, if you could sign on the sheet. Thank you.
Absolutely. Good evening. My name is Bill Vaughn. I live at 11 Fairways Boulevard. I don't know if we can get the slide up that shows the concept of the southern part again, but where I live is right at the corner of Fairways and Frankhauser. So that's right where the currently proposed pedestrian and bike entrance is. I've written to the board about this. I spoke at the planning board meeting a few weeks back, but just wanted to state again in person on behalf of my family and many of our neighbors, the very real safety concerns about putting a pedestrian entrance there. A few years ago, with the work of the Amherst Traffic Safety Board, the town completely reconfigured the intersection there because it became a racetrack for cars to speed through between Sheridan and Maple. So if the town has spent all this time, effort, and money on reconfiguring what was deemed to be an unsafe intersection, why would we want to put pedestrians into that intersection? There's no logical reason to put one there. It's incredibly important to point out, I don't know if the laser pointer's here, but all along Frankhauser on the eastern side there, where the pedestrians would leave the park, there's no sidewalks anywhere there until you're past my house on Fairways. So again, all the pedestrians would be put immediately into Frankhauser to walk. Super unsafe, obviously. So please reconsider. You've heard a couple times tonight the idea of putting a small satellite parking lot on Maple to allow access there. Safety is of utmost concern always. So thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I'm Judy Ferraro at 213 Donnelly Boulevard. The reckless, out-of-control spending by this board is beyond abuse of power. It ex- It explains why you need an 11% bailout from the taxpayers, the very ones that you treat with contempt or ignore. The supplicants that come before you who are the real experts in any neighborhood, not the hired, so-called experts that we pay for to fulfill your agenda. The museum move, the Boulevard Mall, UBMD, Westwood, LED lighting, the ball fields, most neighborhoods are examples of taxpayers without full knowledge or consent are forced to underwrite your fiscal irresponsibility. Westwood was to be preserved as a passive park with musical fare as the one exception. Now, after years of obfuscating, lying, and gaslighting, the plan has become a dumping ground of hodgepodge development with roads throughout, all to satisfy the avarice and egos of the well-connected. That does not benefit ordinary people when the unvarnished truth and the cost to them for it are known. Perhaps in your selfish blindness, you are unaware of the struggles that ordinary people are experiencing in this economic environment that is rapidly becoming worse. So tell us, what are the cuts in your budget? Ordinary people want to know, since they are obliged to cut or secure another job or two to keep up with the reality of superinflation and a failing economy. And no, and no happy talk, please. We've heard it all. We see what we see. The future is today, not 10 years from now. There will be no happy future with the trajectory you have us on, with unending, massive deficit spending. Thank you.
Tom, come forward.
Good evening, town board members. My name is Thomas Frank. I reside at 5403 Main Street. And thank you for allowing me these 3 minutes to comment on the public hearing resolution 955 for the Amherst Central Park Greenway, but also interconnected to the context has to do with the resolution 910 for the historic preservation of the property, but also the planning resolution for 2023 number 994 having to do with the 2003 March and June resolutions for geotechnical analysis of the property. And what I would like to let's see, as far as the Amherst Central Park, the Greenway, that it's part of the Niagara River Greenway watershed connection on it's part of the Niagara River Greenway watershed. That the as far as the master site plan design features, they may, might, and must include interconnectivity to a multimodal parks and trails transit station system with the GBNRTC, the piece, as far as the shuttle, they have one that goes to Niagara Falls to the park. They got one that goes to Lockport and another park that should be a part of the plan as far as connecting the joint Glen Park to the Amherst State Park, and as far as the historic preservation, as far as the Ellicott Creek watershed, the groundwater table, it sustained the hunter-gatherer, indigenous native Indian cultural heritage for more than 10,000 years. And Jeffrey Amherst, the British military commander-in-chief, paid for Indian scalps, and that the University at Buffalo in Amherst, the North Campus office, has a collection of the indigenous archaeological artifacts that, as far as the Buffalo Niagara Historical Museum,
We got a lot of speakers.
relocation, yeah, that's it.
Okay. Thanks, Tom.
Kathy Ecolina, 215 Maple Road. I'd also like to bring up about the entrance on Frankhauser where people are going to be, where walkers are going to go in. That curve there, Frankhauser going into Fairways, is a blind corner. It's dangerous now, and you get people parking their cars along there, it's going to become even worse. Unless people are going to put their cars in their backpacks and walk, that's going to really be more blind than it is. And also, on another note, I'd like to bring up something from the Amherst Bee from August 10th, 2022. The title is Exciting Things Coming to Amherst Central Park, and it talks about the grants which come out of our taxpayer money and everything that's going in there. But one sentence that really caught my eye was, "This is what I envision for Amherst Central Park, making it an anchor of the town, designating it the heart of Amherst." That is from Supervisor Culpa. And I can agree with Jen when she says nobody was listened to and there's no transparency. Thank you.
Hey, my name's Mike Kozelski. I'm at 60 Fruhoff. Hopefully I'll take a slightly different tone than some of the other people up here. I didn't have any prepared notes, so this is just going to be a couple of thoughts. I was taking notes while listening to the public advocate, and I was thinking that despite maybe concerns about traffic, despite concerns about this Sheridan Drive traffic and this Frankhauser and Fairways Boulevard intersection, the thing that you can do to make streets safer is to jaywalk. That's the most safest way to make a street safe. Put people on the street. So a pedestrian crossing, I'm for it. Traffic lights, I'm for it. Let's get people out of their cars in trails and bike paths to get to the park, get there safely. I'm all for that, and I think that we shouldn't be concerned about catering to the automobile. I do think that this area, this plan is slightly overdeveloped. You know, I don't see why we need a theater in a public park and a couple other things. I think our guiding principle should be, will this benefit all of the residents of Amherst as much of the time as possible? And so there are certain things that maybe you do a better job at that than other things, and I'm not sure that I can like outlay each one. But I think it's clear that maybe a theater would only get use some of the time by a certain demographic of our community, when this should be a park for all of the people, and we should think about ways that are really inclusive. I love the idea of creating an Amherst park system, much like the Olmsted Park system that we have in Buffalo, and I think we should be advocating more for that, connecting it to the other parks in the area through a path and pathway system. I agree that there should be some sort of access on the north side off of Maple. Looking at the map, you know, I don't have it entirely solidified in my head, but it doesn't seem like there's a big entrance there. And so I don't want to dedicate everything to cars because, like I said, we shouldn't be catering to cars, but there should be some way for people on the north side of town, I think, to get there a little bit more easier. In the plan that was proposed, there was a committee. I forgot, there was like various representatives from the town on the committee. I would love to see a citizen on that committee, maybe a local neighbor or something who had as much voice on input as things as the other town members. I think we can see from the discussion here tonight that there's a lot of strong opinions by the neighbors, and I think we should take them into account. Me personally, you know, there are some things I like, some things I don't. I don't really think it matters one person. Like, I don't care at all if there's farm animals there. Like, I think that's awesome. My kids would love that. And I don't care at all about golf courses. And I would love for there to not be a golf course because I don't use that. But I make software in my day job. And as part of making software, what you do is you find the minimum viable product is what it's called. What thing can I do quickest that will deliver some value? And then after that thing is delivered, you look at it and you say, what's the change that we can make? What's the feedback that we're getting? And should we plan to go this way or that way? And I think maybe taking a smaller incremental approach, listening to feedback might give some positive direction to this project. So thanks so much.
My name's Judith Battaglia. I live at 215 Washington Highway. I have some serious concerns with the management of Amherst at this time. What I'm going to focus on at this very moment is the increase in taxes, of which, from what I'm hearing from most people, they were not well aware, or this information was not well known to many of the Amherst residents. The positions of the people on this board, as well as the supervisor, are elected positions. We elect you so that we know you are going to work in good faith, be accountable, be responsible, and be reasonable. I do not feel, as I'm sure many others do not feel, this increase in the taxes is a responsible decision. Perhaps it could have been tiered in a different way, and it could have been presented to the public. Once again, these positions are elected positions, and I hope that there'll be some rethinking in how this increase in tax is done and the way in which you will tier the different projects. Because if not, perhaps this community needs to think about what the results of our next election should be.
My name is Georgine Tripodi. I live at 199 Burbank Drive. I do not have something prepared. I need to know, has there been cost-benefit analysis for the LED project?
Yes. So we're in a public hearing about Central Park. The LED project had a huge cost-benefit analysis, but again, this is specific to a Central Park public hearing.
And has there been cost-benefit analysis to this project?
Yes.
And don't answer.
Okay.
Don't answer.
Don't answer. We're supposed to be taking comments on the park itself.
Okay. I am not happy with.
Okay.
I'm not happy with the 11.
keep going.
They don't have an answer.
I did answer the question, yes. Listen, I'm not. That, I answered the question, although that is not the format for this public hearing. I did answer, yes, this town's looked at a lot of cost. It's looked at a lot of cost over time at this park. So please continue with your comments about the park.
I guess I am not prepared for the comments on the park. You already know, sir, my feeling about this park and the way that you have run roughshod over all of us in Amherst. And I will, you don't care about us at all. And the fact that you're increasing our taxes by over 11% proves it. I will thank Ms. Buckeye for voting against it. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dave Trudy, and I live at 176 Cranbourne. And thank you for the opportunity to speak to you for a few minutes. I appreciate it. Currently, there's a signal on Sheridan and Frankhauser. If you're currently on Frankhauser and want to turn right or left, that signal stays green for 9 seconds.
Okay.
And that's it. It basically allows 2 cars to go through. So I'm not sure if there's going to be a signal at Fenwick and Sheridan when they do this. But if not, I mean, it really is a speedway through there, and it results in multiple accidents, as our Amherst PD knows, at Sheridan and North Forest. What that does then is create a backup. Those cars go down Fenwick through Cranbourne onto Park Club Lane to Main Street, or on Dawnbrook out to North Forest. I just want you to be aware of that. Also, I'm concerned about the strain that the park will put on an old infrastructure, particularly our sanitary sewers, on the neighborhood to the south of that park. This summer, it seemed like every other house was having sanitary sewers dug up. So I just want to make you aware of all that too. So again, appreciate the time and good luck.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Matt Plunkett, 299 North Hill Drive, Unit B. This is addressed to the meeting, or the hearing, probably less to the content of it, but I worked here for 7 years, 20 years ago. Councilmember Buckeye was on the board back then. Former Councilmember Stratz is out there in the audience someplace. Back then, the board actually used to discuss things among themselves. You know, I'm sitting here tonight, and basically what I see is one person doing the talking and 4 mutes. And the other thing I noticed, when I worked here, all the department heads were at the town board meetings, or almost all of them were at the town board meetings. I don't see but maybe 1 or 2 department heads here tonight. Dan's here because he has to be, and the town attorney's here, I guess. I don't see any department heads here, but I do see police officers, and I think that tells these people all they need to know about what you think about them.
Hello, my name is Mary Shapiro. I live at 16 Royal Woods Court, and I'm here speaking for a group of Royal Woods residents. The biggest thing of this whole PUD application is the underhanded way that you're trying to remove all of this review from the public. You know, far be it from me to disagree with town planners, but it's very clear that there's nothing in our town zoning code that allows for you to make a change of use in a PUD application. If we look at the section that they stated, it says clearly, amending approval of a PUD application does not constitute or authorize the issuance of building permits. Such actions can only be taken after site plan approval in accordance to 8.7. Sorry, that's a little bit different than what I was saying. You don't get to have the planning department do site plan approval. The planning board has the sole authority in this town to do site plan approval. Not the town board, the planning board. There's nothing that allows you to change that unilaterally through a PUD application. I'll read a couple others. The determination by the town board of whether to approve a PUD application to adjust any regulations, standards, or criteria of this ordinance shall be based on its review of the proposed conceptual development plan, the report of the planning board, and the planning director, which the public hasn't been privy to, and any matters brought forward at the hearing and approval or rejection of a development plan where the town board has acted on its own initiative. That describes all of you. What does it have to be based on? General review criteria. The proposed zoning and development plan is generally consistent with the policies of the comprehensive plan and the ordinance. We know that's not correct because you don't, your RC zoning and the uses you're proposing are not allowed within that zoning. Whether or not there are adequate services and utilities or proposed to be made available, compatibility with present zoning and conforming uses of nearby property and the character of the neighborhood, suitability of the subject property for uses permitted in the current versus the proposed district. You're not proposing a new district. Whether the proposed changes tend to improve the balances of uses or meet a specific demand in the town. Section 845. To approve a planned unit application, the board shall consider and make findings on the following matters in addition to those specified above that I just read. The proposed conceptual development plan meets the purpose and objectives or the district in which the PUD is located. That doesn't say you can change it, not with conditions. The PUD development plan must be consistent with all the applicable use regulations in Part 6 and the purpose statement of the zoning district in which it's located. Farm animals don't belong there. Farm animals are not required for the Amherst Museum, or whatever it's calling itself now, to perform its duty. They didn't have farm animals for many years. They have a regional mission now, not an Amherst-based mission. Are they going to allow Amherst residents in for free? Is musical fair or whoever else your preferred provider in the theaters going to allow Amherst residents in for a discount rate? What's the benefit to the town? Is there going to be an admission fee? Is there going to be a gate to keep out people who don't pay Amherst taxes? I have attached to this the comments I made at the planning board, which I'm assuming you all saw because they should have been part of the EIS. I tend to doubt you read them. I don't think most of the planning board members even read the application. I did hear at the pre-meeting before the planning board hearing that you're doing this in order to tie the hands of future boards. This is not going to tie the hands of future boards. So it only means that you're planning on using the 3 Amherst Central Park CIP budget items that you've put in there to spend $32 million over 2 years by bonding. That's just not physically responsible. Anyway, I'll hand the rest of this in. I hope that you will just withdraw this. This is the first hearing before this board regarding this park. The first public hearing. This is the only thing we've ever seen that's part of a record. Adopt a plan. Involve the public. You could have avoided all this. Instead, you just want to be a dictator.
Hello, I'm Jerry O'Connor. I live at 27 Chateau Terrace South. I did want to comment about Central Park because I consider that to be a vanity project. It really doesn't enhance the quality of life for most Amherst residents. But I also want to point out that, you know, the tax increase that's supposed to pay for this comes on top of a tax increase of 7.31% in 2019. On top of that, a tax increase of over 6% in 2021. Last year, we had a tax increase of 7.87%. And now this year, you're proposing an 11% tax increase on people who work. I'm sorry, what's that? But we're facing taxes on top of taxes, tax increases on top of tax increases on top of tax increases, and quite frankly, you can't even afford a decent microphone for community comments. But to my calculation, in the last 5 years, our taxes have gone up over 33%. And our services have declined, our quality of life has declined, traffic has increased, development has increased, and the average taxpayer in Amherst has nothing to show for it other than a high level of frustration. And because I expected better from this board, and I voted for each and every one of the people on this board, and I'm ashamed to say that. Can you hear me? I voted for each and every member on this board, but to come out with an 11% tax increase after the election, I consider to be almost criminal. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Shelley Schratz, and I get it. I really get it. And I was at the December 9th meeting, and I heard something the other day at another special meeting. I'm going to read it to the public, and I hope you can hear me, because this came from our board. Okay, is that it? Okay, can you hear me? Can you hear me? You can tell I'm not an entertainer. Okay. Amendment to enhance financial transparency. I've been talking about transparency for years, and Matt Plunkett said it. Debbie Buckeye, myself, the previous boards, we were transparent, and we sat here till midnight if we had to listen to everybody's opinion. This is from Sean Lavin, council member, and it said perfectly, and I want everyone to pay attention because they voted for this. Whereas the town of Amherst is committed to providing greater transparency in financial matters for the benefit of its residents. Now therefore be it resolved that the following amendments to the resolution 2023-843 are approved. Section 1, 4-year financial plan. Once approved, the Town of Amherst Supervisor's Office is hereby required to provide the public with a comprehensive 4-year financial plan. This plan shall include detailed budget projections and potential budget shortfalls over the upcoming 4 years. The plan shall be made accessible to the public through the Town of Amherst website. Physical copies shall be made available at the town hall and other municipal locations. The 4-year financial plan shall be updated annually to ensure it remains current and accurate. The 4-year financial plan shall include, but not be limited to, all of the following information for each of the 4 fiscal years covered by the financial plan. 1, a projection of all revenues and expenditures of the town for each fiscal year, including debt service, a projection of cash flow for each fiscal year, a schedule of projected capital commitments for each fiscal year, measures to assure that projected employment levels, collective bargaining agreements, and other employee costs are consistent with projected expenditures and available revenue. Measures to assure compliance with mandates under state and federal law consistent with projected expenditures and available revenue. Measures to ensure adequate reserves for mandated and other essential programs, activities in the event of an overestimation of revenue, an underestimation of expenditures, or both. A statement of significant assumptions and methods of estimation used for projections, including a financial plan, any other information the town supervisor, controller, or director of finance considers appropriate. The 4-year financial plan will sunset in 2028. Monthly budget monitoring report. The town of Amherst Budgeting and Controller Department shall be responsible for providing a monthly budget monitoring report to the town's leadership and the public. This report will present an overview of the public projections for current fiscal year. It shall include detailed statements of revenue collected versus and budget figures, the budget surplus of deficit for the quarter, and assessment of fiscal risk, uncertainties, and any new policy measures that affect the budget, and if applicable, recommendations for adjustments to the budget. The report shall be available to any town board member upon request at the close of each quarter. Effective date, July 1st, 2024. The amendment shall take effect on January 1st, 2024. The amendment is incorporated into to become part of the original resolution 2023-843. Now, let me just say, we were here at the December 9th budget meeting. We were not allowed, people were not allowed, a special meeting at 4:30 in the afternoon. We were not allowed to speak. There were 15 people here, majority seniors. Nobody gave them the common decency to speak. Brian, you got up and walked out the door. I went outside and cried. So many people, we have parents, people that have lived here, that deserve our respect, and we treat them like trash, like throw them away. That is not who we are. We have never been. That's number one. Number two, okay? There was another special little meeting, a work session today. I'm sorry, I'm going to have 2 more things to say and I'm done. Today, okay, today, you had a special vote.
We're
This is
still
about
in a
money.
public hearing about the park.
I know, it's about, okay, it's about money. It's about what you're funding. Billions and millions of dollars. This all adds up. 10 cents is a lot of money if you don't have 10 cents. Let's be clear here. Okay, so, but you had a work session today. Or the other day, excuse me? You were late for the meeting that we came to, the work session that you were late for, that they held the meeting up. Let's be clear, there was a meeting. No, this is the public. If you don't want to tell the public.
Shelley, you were on the board. You know rules of order. Your time is up. You can speak during public expression.
I will stand here, okay. No. I will wait again in line, because let me tell you something.
You can complete your thought.
No,
in a
I
public
can't
hearing
wait to
about
repeat
the
it
park.
again. No, I'll repeat it.
Okay. I said complete your thought.
Can I just say before the next speaker, Mrs. Schratz, if there was something else you wanted to say, I think you should say it.
I asked you to complete your thought.
Shelley, if you wanted to still say, you had a question or a clarification, you're certainly welcome to do that.
Okay. There was a vote taken, okay? You know, I need a minute because, you know, I gotta tell you. I don't want, lay next to your mother dying, who gave her whole life for her family and her town, and loved this government, supported government, and all the seniors want to be is heard, and you ignore them, and you don't give them the respect. Okay, I'm 66, okay, I'm a senior, but I need to sit down because I have to get my thoughts together.
Good evening.
Ron is thinking.
Can everybody hear me? Hello, testing, 1, 2, 3.
Dennis, back up from the mic.
You're
Back up?
too close.
I'm too close.
There you go.
How's this? Can you hear me now?
Go ahead.
Okay, my name is Dennis Hoban. I live at 216 California Drive, Williamsville, New York. To say that I'm disappointed would be an extremely large understatement. But I remember when Brian Culpa was mayor of Williamsville, I was pretty disappointed then. They have these projects, the one that's up on the screen right now. Well, I'll tell you what, in Williamsville, they bought the mill for about $500,000. Then they found out that Warren Miller had a lien on it for $50,000. Mary Lothar waved her magic wand, paid $50,000 more. They got grants, they fixed it all up. Then they ended up selling it to a friend of Brian Culpa's for less than what we bought it for. Okay? And now down the street from where I live, I have what I call the city of Williamsville, okay? It's a project on California Drive where they jammed about 800 people into like what was a really nice neighborhood. I've lived there since 1986. I lived in the town of Amherst my entire life, which is 67 years old. I know I only look like I'm 39, but thank you. But I'm 67. I've lived here my whole life. I actually had a meeting with Brian Culp a few months ago, and a retired detective from the Amherst Police Force came with me. And Brian Culp looked me right in the eye. I have an eyewitness. He's a retired Amherst detective, police officer. Brian Culp looked me right in the eye when I told him that you're not following the Constitution of the United States. You have to allow people to come to a meeting and bring their grievances, assemble and bring their grievances to the government. That's the First Amendment in the Constitution of the United States. Okay? You know what Brian's response was? Brian's response was, he looked me right in the eye and he said, I can do whatever the hell I want to do. That's what he told me. I'm not making this up, ladies and gentlemen. I have an eyewitness. I have a retired detective from the Amherst Police Force that will back up that be telling you that, okay? So, I have a little letter I wrote a couple months ago, and I'm not sure what to entitle it. I was thinking maybe after watching this board for a while, I think Brian's pretty much got a rubber stamp here. So I think the board, he can do whatever the hell he wants, I guess. And I'm thinking that I'm going to call this in one ear and out the other, or maybe just corruption costs money. Here we go. Bear with me, please. Dictators are not born, they are created. They are created by those of us who give them the power they crave. Town of Amherst Supervisor Brian Culpa wishes to change the term limit law in Amherst so he can remain in office. The term limit law now has been in effect for many years, and abolishing it would be a huge mistake. No one, regardless of affiliation, should want or allow this to happen. Term limits should always be upheld, and more are needed. Having new blood infused into the system brings about new ideas and facilitates progress. It naturally prevents corruption from occurring by ending long terms that allow career politicians to dominate a position. I thank the board.
Yeah, guys, so again, we're still in a public hearing about the park.
Good evening. I know you're on the park. I wasn't going to mention about the park. John Bettino, 41 Joliet Lane, Amherst, obviously.
There's public expression separate from.
We've got 2 other meetings and kids to put to bed. We're all kind of trying to get out of here as well.
Just go ahead.
You got it. Thank
We're
you, sir.
talking about park.
Thank you. Mr. Supervisor and members of the town board, I wasn't going to mention the park, Amherst Central Park tonight, but since there's been so much interest in it, I figure I'd talk about a couple of the topics with it. I'd ask the town, how can we engage in such projects when we don't have the dedicated parks department and we don't take care of the parks we have now? At least not in my... I can say that at least not in the Eggertsville community if you guys ever make it out that way. As someone who has proudly served as a career public servant for over 23 years and dedicated firefighter in this town for 30, I stand before you with a deep commitment of well-being to the town of Amherst. Today I address a matter of great concern, the proposed tax increase. The tax cap was implemented in 2011 to shield the taxpayers from financial strain, and it strikes a delicate balance between fiscal responsibility and the growth of our municipality. Challenges used to justify the increase have been discussed, such as personnel cost, filling vacancies in the ranks of our great Amherst Police Department. It's hard to comprehend that new police hires would cost more than 30-year veterans that have retired. The average age of our police officers on staff, or average length of service, is probably less than 10 years. Significant savings to that of 20 years ago when we had folks that were at the tail end of their career. Additionally, we have an increase in population in our town in the last 12 years of 8,000 people. How does that not decrease the tax burden? Especially, that number does not account for the $500,000 plus homes that are being built throughout our town. How does that decrease the burden on all of the residents that are here to participate and to contribute? Just the front headline of last week's Amherst Bee reads, "Town Board Tackles Housing Costs." I mean, come on. It's also disheartening to witness the neglect of certain areas of our town, such as the Eggertsville community, the lack of representation to represent the diverse section each part of our town has, especially again in the Eggertsville community. That's one of the oldest in the town. Resided in the town of Amherst in the Eggertsville community for 46 years. The lack of communication, return calls, emails from our government and representatives is also disappointing. In closing, I implore the town to reconsider, please. If you can do anything to express the people that you serve, and that's who we serve as public servants. We serve the people. You're in the people business. I implore you to reconsider this proposal of the 11% increase. Phase it in over a period of time that's fair to the taxpayers and fair to fund government, and have fiscal responsibility to build community unity. Our elected officials should also consider navigating these challenges without placing these undue burdens on the people that are investing in you and into our town. Thank you for your time, and I humbly ask the board again to reconsider, rescind, or adjust the increased proposal. Thank you.
Good evening, Supervisor Culpa and members of the committee this evening. My name is Kathleen Murphy. I live on 26 Forest Stream Road here in Williamsville. I'm here to represent and speak on behalf of my mother, Dorothy Murphy, on 238 South Cayuga. Our family's been in the village since 1957. They've been very actively involved in a lot of the committees over the course of many years. My mother's now a widow at 87, going to be 88 years old. And she is very troubled, as well as the rest of our family members are very concerned about her ability to stay in her home that she loves. These tax increases are crippling her and other seniors in this area. I have lived in my own home for the last 6.5 years, and the increases, even though I'm a working and well-paid person, is becoming a challenge for all of us. I do not feel that 11% is warranted in this case, given the prior years as well. I just wanted to record my comments on this. I speak on behalf of my mother, and I'm sure I speak on behalf of many other seniors who could not make it here to this meeting this evening. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Hi, my name is Frank Vicks. I live at 240 Hamilton Drive. I'm mainly concerned about the 11% tax increase to pay for this. I think this is almost a shadow. We're coming for 11% for this. How much of that 11% is going to the Boulevard Mall and paying for that? Going along with the Boulevard Mall and this tax increase is the fact that you started this Northtown Plaza project 7+ years ago. We got one store in there. The Boulevard Mall is going to be 200 times bigger than that, and we're expecting that to get completed. And this thing's, the Northtown Plaza's been sitting there for over 7 years, and you expect this monster project to get completed, and you can't even finish that small plaza. 11% increase in our taxes is ridiculous to pay for that and the Boulevard Mall.
I
understand you're saying that this meeting is about this, but I think this is about more than just this park. It's about where this 11% is going. It's going to this and the development of the Boulevard Mall.
It's not. I understand your point, and again, we are in a public hearing about this, right? And the layout of this and the way that this is constructed. In the tax offsets, right? A $33 million spend on streetlights, and offsets us hiring 17 officers to fill vacancies in Amherst Police, and it offsets an increase in interest rate, and it offsets an increase in material costs. It offsets an increase in fire department spending that we have to spend. It offsets a lot of other things. It's not about this. It's not about the Boulevard Mall. So I understand.
I don't understand. I understand the fact.
Okay, I understand. So anyway, so we're still in a public hearing about this.
The problem I see is that we have open projects out there that aren't getting done, and we're on the bill for that.
Well,
you said
wait,
the cost analysis of those LED lights,
but
kind of like the cost analysis of the bump out curbs. The bump out curbs on Main Street that we cost, how much that cost millions of dollars, and it costs those businesses tons of money. And I'm sure everybody here is really appreciative of being 3 yards closer to the other side of the street. I mean, was that necessary?
Understood.
I mean, there's a lot of unnecessary things going on around here. To increase our taxes 11% above the threshold is really not necessary.
Okay.
So that's all I have to say.
Jane, are you going to talk about the PUD?
I am going to talk about the park.
Thank you.
My name is Jane Cox. I live on Harlem Road. I'm going to talk about the park. For people that haven't been here before, there is public expression, and you're probably very welcome to talk about taxes during that time period, but we're going to talk about Amherst Central Park briefly. I was listening to the presentation, which we cannot hear because obviously your mics are terrible. But regarding the new procedures, when you are talking about having no more planning board approval for this plan, and I assume maybe some others in the future, I don't know, that eliminates the public hearing where the public gets to express their opinions. And the normal process then would be something would come before the town board for another public hearing, and the public would again have an opportunity to express their opinions. You are cutting the public out of the process. When you talked about the new approval team for this project, you named a lot of your own people, but I didn't hear anything about how residents would be represented. Are we totally cut out? On the idea of moving the museum, which I have spoken about before, is a really bad idea. They are on a large piece of property. They're in a rural area. There's plenty of room for more buildings. We have already paid for the property for moving all the historic buildings to that property, and they can have animals there if they like. It would be very crowded at Amherst Central Park. The museum likes to bring in busloads of school kids. I don't know where you're going to put all the parking and the people, but it belongs in a rural area, and it really should stay there. We've already paid for those buildings to be moved there. I don't know why we have to pay to have them all moved again. And now I am reading from something I have been asked to read about the Director of Facilities, a seemingly new position for a park that hasn't even been approved, is not an elected official accountable to the public taxpayers and should not have the authority equal to the town board to bring forward projects based upon a concept plan. In addition, they should not have authority to bring forward CIP budget projects, which will result in the expenditure of taxpayer money with no public process. No other department head in the town has that authority, which would require another amendment to the zoning code. The process described is not in compliance with the town code or seeker, which requires public involvement at the start of the process. The proposed process also seems to bypass the planning board, who has the sole authority to approve site plans. So I am going to submit this on behalf of Mary Shapiro, who has other public comments on here. Thank you for listening.
Can I change the subject with a different resolution or not net?
We're still on the park public hearing.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else have comments on the park? Seeing none, I'm going to move to close the public hearing on the PUD for Central Park.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The next item on the agenda is a public hearing on Resolution 956, which is a 420 New Road rezoning. I don't know who the applicant is, but if somebody would please come forward. No, we can't vote on any of these. This is the first time up.
Good evening, Supervisor, Town Board members. Joe Rubino, 5462 Sheridan Drive, Williamsville. I have a application in front of the board for a rezoning for 420 New Road. This is a property I bought a few months ago. There's a existing single-family Cape Cod home on the site. You can see it on the survey. It's about 1,600 square feet.
Excuse me, could you wait a moment?
Sure.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, again, the home, it's on the lot. The lot's an acre in size. The home, it was owned by a longtime owner that he didn't have the funds to put into the home, so it's in desperate need of some TLC, which I'm going to undertake over the winter and springtime months. And my goal is to put that back into the market for a new homeowner sometime in the late spring. The lot is unique where it has frontage on both New Road and Autumn Meadows Lane. So again, that was my intent to create 2 additional building lots. And I think if we go to the next slide. One more, please. It's probably at the end. Well, this slide right here will show Autumn Meadows Lane right here, existing home here, and here's the dwelling right here. Next slide. Yeah, this is what I wanted to create. So in the zoning that I'm requesting, which is common in the area, R3, a building lot has a square footage of 8450 square feet. You can see what I'm proposing here. This existing house lot is over 13,000 square feet. The corner lot is 16,000 square feet. And again, the interior lot in Autumn Meadows is over 17,000 square feet. Again, compared to the R3 minimum of a little over 8,000 square feet. Services are available, utilities are there. And again, the planning board, they thought it was a good project, and they recommended approval of the rezoning. And I'm here to answer any questions that this board may have.
All right, let's start with the town board. Are there any questions regarding the project?
I have a couple questions.
Sure, Deputy Supervisor.
Yes, thank you. So I was reading the materials, and it said that the garage will be demolished. Is the existing house going to still stay where it is?
Yes, it is.
It is?
Yeah. There's 2 garages. There's an attached garage to the Cape-style house here, and then there's an outbuilding here that will be demolished.
So then you're going to demolish that one.
This one over here will be
and
demolished.
give an opportunity for development of like another parcel for a house. Is that the idea?
Correct, right. The frontage here on Autumn Meadows, there's a house right here at 25 Autumn Meadows. And again, this would be a neighboring house.
Okay, another question, again about drainage. The drainage, 100% of the site is in a 100-year floodplain. It's poorly drained. So can you comment about what modifications you would be making for any structures that would be built on those, in that area?
Yeah, absolutely. Before, building can be done, I had a soil test done by Barron Engineering. So I have the report. The town has that as well. That would be submitted to my architect, and the architect properly will design the foundations to accommodate those soils. As far as the drainage, there's a drainage plan that will be required with the engineering department for not only the 2 additional lots, but for the existing home as well. So again, the drainage will be much better than it is now.
Will those new houses have basements?
Yes, they will.
They will be able to?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Sure.
What's your timeline on this, please?
The existing home, again, I want to do some work on it. I have my architect, Dave Sutton. We're going to do some modifications and, bring it up to today's standards. And so, again, I want to work on that through the winter time and finish that home up in the spring. And then alongside that, have these new construction. Springtime is the market to start a new home.
Mr. Rubino, I have a question as well. What is the listing price for the homes once they're complete?
Yeah, the existing house, I'm going to keep under 300,000. Again, it'll be a nice house when it's finished. It's all brick, nice big 2-car garage, has a basement, so that'll be under 300. The other house on the corner, I'm saying somewhere around 400, and the interior lot will be probably closer to 500. So at the end of the day, it's $1 million project for a corner lot.
All right, anything further from this board? Okay, so are there any audience members who have comments or questions regarding the potential rezoning of 420 New Road here this evening? Seeing none, I'm going to motion to close the public hearing. Let me finish.
Oh.
I'm going to motion to close the public hearing and set a decision date for December 18th.
Now I'm seconding.
All in favor? Great.
Thank you.
Thanks. I'm gonna, so We're adjourning Resolution 623, 1350 Eggert Road rezoning, pending more conversation between the developer and residents in that area. I'm going to motion to open Resolution 957, a public hearing on 4774 and 4780 Sheridan Drive rezoning at this time.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, don't come forward yet. They're going to present, then you'll have an opportunity.
Are you here for this rezoning?
I think so.
Okay, after they present.
We're good. Go ahead.
She looked confused.
Good evening, Supervisor Culpa and members of the Town Board. Sean Hopkins on behalf of the applicant, RIS Development Company. Also with me is Rob Savarino. Mr. Savarino is handing out to each of you a copy of the presentation that we're given this evening, as well as a letter from the environmental consultant. Before we begin, I want to make it very clear, we are not asking the Town Board to issue a decision this evening. We'll make the presentation, respond to any comments, and then also, of course, if there are any residents that are in attendance, we welcome the opportunity to follow up with them as well. We're here this evening in connection with the request to amend the zoning classification of two parcels located at 4774 and 4780 Sheridan Drive, most commonly known as the former Gleason's Nursery. The location of the project site is on the north side of Sheridan Drive. Just to acclimate everyone, this is Park Country Club. And as you can see in the immediate vicinity of this project site, there are various zoning classifications, including R3, R4, MFR5, MFR4, RC, and CF. This site is currently zoned R3, and we're proposing a rezoning to R4, and we'll explain why in a moment. That's simply an aerial photograph of the project site. Again, on the left-hand side is Sheridan Drive, which is a New York State highway running east to west. The site itself is approximately 5.03 acres in size. So the biggest topic in connection with this particular request is because of the fact that it was formerly utilized as Gleason's Nursery for many decades, it became clear that this site has contamination. Not surprising, you've dealt with this issue in connection with other parcels. That's as a result of the use of heavy metals in connection with that previous business. So what we're proposing to do is to rezone this site from R3 to R4 in order to allow attached two-family, and I want to make sure it's two-family residential units for sale, not for lease, for sale. That will also then allow us to enter into the DEC brownfield cleanup program, specifically Track 4, residential cleanup, which is a good standard. We cannot do that under the existing zoning for one reason and one reason only. Because of the fact, ultimately, under the existing zoning, we would have no choice but to convey ownership of the lots and the homes to individual property owners, and they would then assume long-term liability for compliance with the DEC brownfield stringent cleanup standards, meaning if there's a need for additional testing, if there's a need for additional cleanup, if there's a need for additional monitoring, those homeowners would become responsible. Probably no project sponsor in Western New York would be comfortable selling that type of scenario to a single-family homeowner, even if they were willing to accept it. So in light of that, we're proposing what we believe is the next least intensive requirement or proposal that we could do here. It's just the site blown out. Of course, you can see Park Country Club across the street. It's a copy of the concept plan that we submitted with the rezoning application. So what we're showing here is 11 two-family residential units for sale. It is important to note that because we're seeking R4 zoning, there are some more stringent requirements that come into play as well. For example, we do have to install a fence along the perimeter of the property that's adjacent to existing residential uses. We have to put very extensive screening on our side of that fence, landscaping, and then we are showing a layout that complies with all setbacks. It's important to note that there was previously a residential subdivision approved here. Again, that could not go forward because of the contamination, but if you look back at that subdivision, it's actually arguably more intensive than this, because while it was 13 single-family homes rather than 11 buildings, they were very large single-family homes proposed by a custom builder. These units in particular, the footprints are approximately 1,700 square feet. So again, 11 buildings, 2-family each, 22 units total. 1,780 square feet of living space on the first floor, 2 bedrooms, 2 baths, designed to accommodate first floor living. Unfortunately, given escalation in construction costs, the cleanup requirements, the infrastructure standards, these units will cost $500,000 and up. The primary target market here is generally people that live in the town of Amherst, like living in the town of Amherst, but want to downsize. This type of layout provides the ability to travel to the south in the winter if you want to. It's a smaller footprint, and there'll be an association responsible for maintenance of the green space, et cetera. It's an elevation of the 2-family unit. It is important to note that R3 zoning, the existing zoning classification in place today, expressly allows a maximum building height of 35 feet. This layout shows at approximately 28 or 29 feet, and we'd actually be willing to agree to a height restriction that's lower than what's actually permitted today. A copy of the concept plan, and of course this project ultimately will need to go back in front of the planning board if and when the rezoning is approved. Has been subject to an extensive review process. We submitted the application in the fall. Mr. Savarino did hold an informational meeting on October 3rd at the Audubon Library. We have submitted a copy of the Phase 2 environmental study that was commissioned by Paul Bliss, one of the previous applicants, to demonstrate the contamination on site. On November 14th, we provided the town board with an update letter, an additional letter on November 17th, and then also Rob has provided, I believe on November 17th, a project update letter to all residents that attended the informational meeting in early October, as well as any residents that spoke during the public hearing held by the planning board. It is important to note that the most important criteria this board considers is whether or not a rezoning is consistent with the adopted bicentennial comprehensive plan. This particular rezoning is, if you can see, and I've highlighted it, we're in that area that's designated as appropriate for residential, again, in a mixture of existing zoning classifications and uses. And the key benefit of the redevelopment of this site is the cleanup of the brownfield program. We did submit a letter from the existing property owner, the Gleason Estate, today, or yesterday, that basically confirms they do not have the wherewithal or financial resources to complete this cleanup. And why that's important, it means if this project's not successful, ultimately, it's likely, at least for the foreseeable future, it will stay as a contaminated site. Finally, I do want to note the planning board did hold a public hearing on October 19th, recommended approval of the rezoning and issuance of a negative declaration subject to 5 conditions. The planning board did issue findings that this was consistent with the adopted bicentennial comprehensive plan. And the 5 conditions that were recommended or that we're proposing is that the density shall not exceed 4.4 units per acre, barely larger than what's permitted in R3. The planning board actually recommended 4.3, but it's the exact same layout, so I want to point that out. That the use of the site, if rezoned, shall be limited to 2-unit attached townhomes only. That the maximum height, and the planning board recommended 35 feet, we're lowering that to 30 feet, lower than what's permitted in R3. Condition number 4, that the applicant must conduct the required cleanup of the contaminated soils per the stringent requirements of the DEC Brownfield Cleanup Program. And then number 5, that all 4 of the previous conditions be contained in a declaration of restrictions to be recorded at the Erie County Clerk's Office. In terms of the details of the Brownfield Cleanup Program, it's a pretty complicated process, but ultimately we are very confident that this project will qualify. We have environmental consultants involved. Due diligence has been conducted, and ultimately the first stage of this redevelopment project would be to complete that cleanup in accordance with the stringent standards of both the DEC and the Erie County Department of Health. I finally want to note that this project also does require an environmental review pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act. It is an unlisted action, and we did submit a completed Part 1 of the full environmental assessment form. I've already indicated that we believe the residential project is consistent with community character as well as the comprehensive plan. I've talked about the required cleanup per the DEC Brownfield program. This project will, again, require site plan approval in the future from the planning board, At that point, we'll be required to submit engineered plans, sewer plans, all the extensive detailed documentation. And only because I know Councilmember Buckeye will ask the question, we have submitted a geotechnical report prepared by Ray Teeter. We're well aware of the soil conditions. Our project design team will design these buildings in accordance with those recommendations. That will be verified in connection with the future building permit review process, and these units will have basements. So we do think it's quite clear this project will not result in any potentially significant adverse environmental impacts. So we're asking you, not this evening, but hopefully at your next meeting on December 18th, to consider issuing a negative declaration pursuant to seeker, and then also approving the rezoning of the project site subject to the 5 conditions that we've proposed. If there's any questions, of course, either myself or Mr. Savarino would welcome the opportunity to address them. I also want to note that Mr. Savarino is going to leave a sign-in sheet here, and to the extent there's any residents here that have questions, we will follow up directly with them prior to the December 18th public hearing. Thank you.
Okay, Sean, I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
Oh, sorry, my mic wasn't on. Couple questions. So, last time this board dealt with this property, which is just going back a little ways, there was a proposed development, I believe, at 4784, 4790, and 4786 Sheridan.
No, it was the exact same 2 parcels.
Okay, so there was a competing driveway and other issues that the planning board had dealt with?
Right, so at one point, the original developer, Morgan Homes, was proposing a subdivision with private infrastructure, including a private road, and the adjoining owners here, Rob, what are their names?
Granville.
The Granvilles simultaneously submitted a sketch plan application and asked for consideration of a roadway connection. And then Mr. Bliss's approval included a public road shown on the subdivision.
Okay, so that is currently not in consideration, the Granville property?
It's not, but I would note, and I believe Rob can chime in, he's talked to representatives of the Granville family. So Rob, you want to answer that question?
Sure. Rob Savarino, 4758 North French Road. Yes, I've talked to Elliot Frank and the Granvilles. So what we're looking at now is, we're determining the value of the homes as they are, as is, versus the ground value. So that seems to be the big issue that we're trying to solve. I'm, of course, in the market of buying the land, not the structures on it. So there seems to be a gap between that and land value.
Okay, but there's no current proposed development on that site?
There is not.
Okay. All right, thank you.
But I do want to know if and when these parties were ultimately to reach a transaction, and this is based on input we received, we have designed this such that we could accommodate an extension of the roadway, and because we would then exceed 30 units, we'd probably have just a gated emergency access drive onto Sheridan.
I guess the follow-up question was going to be that. Is there an access provision if that were to be available? Is there a protest petition?
I believe there is. I'm going to defer to the town clerk's office, but yes, I believe there's a protest petition that has been filed.
Yes.
Okay. Further questions from this board?
Yes.
Sure.
Thank you.
Deputy Supervisor.
Yes, I was going to ask about basements. I have it on my notes, but you already answered that question. Has the downstream sewer capacity been supplied?
So downstream sewer capacity analysis has previously been reviewed and approved for both the previous subdivisions. The amount of sanitary sewer capacity during wet weather conditions for this project will be roughly the same, but no, Councilmember Berger, given the passage of time, Buckeye, an updated DSCA will be required, and that will need to be reviewed and approved by both the engineering department and the DEC. We're just not there yet. But we do acknowledge that requirement, and we will be required to make an I&I offset mitigation fee to the town's sanitary sewer remediation fund.
Okay. Also, so is this going to be a private road, and is it true that there will be no school bus service?
It's a private road, but it's really, keep in mind what we're doing. I call it more of a private driveway. In terms of school bus service, it is designed to accommodate fire trucks, which are as large and heavier than school buses. But I believe, generally speaking, the school district's policy is that they will not access private roads, but we will have that discussion when we get there. And again, keep in mind, if you look at similar projects, whether they're detached or attached patio homes or this type of project, you're not going to see many school-age children. But could there be some? Yes.
Okay, okay. And then, I guess my other question, and it's sort of been touched upon, so you still might be open if you were able to come up with the appropriate price of working with the Granville family to acquire those additional contiguous lots?
Absolutely, yes. And we've designed this site so that we could accommodate development on those parcels as well. I do want to note, obviously, that would be subject to a completely separate review process.
Right, but you'd still be open. I mean, the land is adjacent. There was a letter from them, so.
Absolutely.
It's just, I was wondering about that.
Yes.
I don't want to go into any other legal matters, but.
Does the stormwater infrastructure take that into account, or would you have to introduce new retention?
No, we would probably have to introduce some new detention or, again, this is just conceptual, Supervisor Copel, but yes, we could accommodate that.
That concludes my question, Supervisor.
Mr. Hopkins, can you tell me about the the fence along the eastern side of this project? The homes behind there at DeVille?
So eastern side would be.
North side.
Oh, north side? So what we're showing is a 6-foot fence. It could either be a wood fence or a vinyl fence. Generally, I prefer wood, but we would have to discuss that with the neighbors. And then per the requirements in Chapter 7 of the zoning code, or actually Article, whatever it is, Section 203-7, we have to have, I believe it's here, intensive landscaping, including trees and bushes, and you can see it has to be continuous. And if we develop this under R3, the existing zoning, those same requirements would not apply. There would still have to be some landscaping.
Can you go to page 5 of your presentation?
Page 5, yes.
So I guess the real question is that house right there.
Right here?
Yep. How close is that?
Their rear yard setback, I believe, under the current R3 would be a 30-foot requirement. I can't verify whether that is what it is, but most likely approximately that.
Okay.
And we're showing a minimum rear yard setback of 30 feet on ours as well.
Can I introduce one?
Sure.
That setback actually increases to approximately 33 feet.
On our side.
Yes.
But he's asking, are you asking how big their house setback is?
I think he's asking what the
Oh, no, on
collective
our site, we're showing 33.
Okay. So collectively, there's 60 feet between residences?
Yeah, at the closest point. And again, these are pretty small units, both in terms of height and size on our site.
Anybody else? Questions at the moment? All
And I
right.
do want to note that same setback applies whether it's a larger single-family home or a smaller two-family home.
All right, I'm going to open it up to resident questions. If you would, when you come forward, please just state your name and address for the record.
Sharon Kalika, 88 Tristan Lane, Amherst. I've been to a couple of the meetings here, and with the builders, why he wants to, what he told us, why he changed it to a Zone 4, because he wants, as a Zone 4, brownfield cleanup pays for the cleanup. Brownfield cleanup pays for the cleanup for him, and for all the units, that he'll make the most money at the 11 double units. And that will be, and he's getting the land really cheap from the owner. I'm concerned over the cleanup of this land and this pollution and this, what's coming on from this cleanup, which brings up the land, cleanup with all this nursery pollutions, the chemicals that was there for many years. That's gonna be happening for over the months. He said about 4 or 5 months of the cleanup. And that's why he wants you to change the zone. And plus, it's also gonna, once you change the Zone 3 to Zone 4, that's only gonna bring in more developers to come in and say, hey, let's do this more in Amherst and East Amherst, and just be a domino effect in our area. That's what I'm concerned about if you let this be approved and everything. He's not gonna be paying for the cleanup, which is the most biggest expense of this. If he doesn't get the Zone 4, he doesn't get the cleanup by the government, which taxpayers pay for this. Okay? Ask him. That's what he told us in the last 2 meetings because we asked him, I said, who's cleaning this up? Who pays for it? And he says, I said, what if we don't change to a zone 4? He says, I will not take on this project. It's not worth it to me. And I say, why 11 double units? Why can't you make it 8? You have 30-foot fronts for each house. That's a lot of homes. That's a lot of water. That's a lot of traffic going in and out of Transit Road right there. Can't you pick another area? And he says, I want to have as many houses on this land and this property to make as much profit. That's what I'm just saying. So I just think he should be asked that question. I mean, like, you're changing it, you know, that's why he's changing it to Zone 4, so he can have some other company to clean up the mess, so he can build on it. That's the biggest expense.
Okay, thank you.
Alicia Schreier, 79 Tristan
Can
Lane.
you pull the mic down a little bit? Sorry. That's okay.
Now?
Yep.
Good. Forward?
Yes.
Now?
There you go.
Yes.
Okay, I hear it too. Okay. Alicia Schreier, 79 Tristan Lane. From Tristan Lane to Troy Delway, the character of my neighborhood is high-end residential, single-family homes. That is the neighborhood I bought into over 30 years ago. That is the neighborhood I pay taxes for, and that is the neighborhood I want to live in. This proposal for double unit rezoning dwellings is right in the middle of my existing neighborhood. I am against double unit dwellings, which will cram twice as many people into a space that is now green. And as I understand, what I'm looking at, 11 double units, is only really phase 1 of the plan, because when the other properties are acquired, we're willing to cram even more people into that green space. I'm against the extra draw on utilities. I am against the extra traffic. I am against the disruptive construction, which will disturb contaminated ground in my backyard. And I don't believe the people of Amherst are looking for where they're going to spend their spare $500,000. I believe they're looking for how they're going to pay their existing taxes. So, yeah. For anybody who's got a spare $500,000 for a 2-bedroom home, you know, let me know. I'd like to know you as my friend. I just want to say thank you. I hope you will consider this. I think Amherst has enough green spaces filled in with too much construction as it is already. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further comments from the audience regarding the project? Go ahead. Yep.
Into the microphone.
My question is, if the single-family owner would have been responsible for additional land cleanup in the future, you did mention that, who's responsible under this plan? Who's responsible under this plan?
Go ahead, Sean, if you want to try to address that.
So under our scenario, the difference between what we're proposing and a single-family subdivision, it allows us to form an association. The association to be formed would be responsible for the long-term obligations per the DC Brownfield program, including any additional cleanup, monitoring, reporting. It's just something, it's a burden that you cannot pass on to single-family homeowners.
So, Sean, in the cleanup plan, I know it's early yet because this isn't in a brownfield program, but would it be full site remediation? I mean, would you actually remove any hazardous material from the site?
Yeah, so it's track 4, which means cleanup of the particular hot spots, and where there's less intensity, it can be cap and covered. It's important to note that unlike many sites, again, because it was a nursery, and even different than a golf course, it's not you don't have to do it across the entire site. You know, it's those areas where the contamination exists.
Would it be cap and cover in this circumstance?
For portions of, and I believe if you look at the letter that Mr. Savarino handed to each of you from Rowe, the environmental consultant, it references the methodology to be utilized in connection with the cleanup. And Mr. Savarino would like to add to that.
Supervisor Culpa, we're going to have to actually drill more test pits. We're aware of that, and we have to come up with our own work plan that has to be adopted by the DEC. So we just can't answer that question now, but based off of the drill results that we have from the phase 2, the DEC is asking for more drilling to occur in areas that didn't get proper testing. And but it's more expansive than just taking out the hot spots, because there is some leakage of the contamination to outside the areas where the drill pits were.
Got it. Okay. All right, is there anything further from the audience? Yep, please come forward. I ask you to just state your name for the an address for record.
Jim Gramke, Ruskin Road. Just based on what they said, I would just caution the board to make any approvals tonight, because if there's additional drilling that has to be done and there is possible leakage, there could be possible problems in the future. Okay, you guys probably know that, but if they can't answer your questions tonight, I don't see how you can approve this project or this proposal tonight.
We don't.
I'm just making my comments. And then the other thing that they just pointed out was that going forward, I think the homeowners coalition was going to be responsible for additional cleanup. What happens if the homeowners association can't cover those costs in the future? Okay, that's a problem. And an example of things that are happening down in Florida, they had that big condo collapse a few years ago. Now insurance rates are being spiked on condos, and people and the homeowners associations are saying we can't pay the insurance bill. So that is a potential problem going forward. And the other question is on these environmental studies, not only for this, but also for the park where they talked about the removal of the trees. Has there been any studies or concerns about how this is going to impact wildlife in the area, and in particular owls that are native and to this area and that breed? The removal of the trees could cause a problem for owl habitats and other animal habitats in the future. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks. So there are some state restrictions on tree removals based on bats and owls, but
Yeah, there's no endangered species on this site per screening by the DEC, but I would note, as the supervisor was about to say, there are time limits in terms of tree clearing because of the northern long-eared bat, which has actually been listed by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service.
anything further from the audience?
Could I just note one other thing? I just want to note that in terms of who's paying for the cleanup, it's important to note that Mr. Savarino is paying for the cleanup. How this works is you get offsets in terms of state tax credits. And that's why I just want to make it clear. It's not,
All right.
it's not a lie. If anyone looks at the DEC Brownfield standards online, you'll see that in terms of why are we proposing this number of units, there is, of course, an underlying financial model. This is being done to offset the substantial costs. And at the end of the day, does Mr. Savarino hope to make a profit? Yes, the project ultimately has to work to be successful. There's no denying that fact. But we think we've come up the best scenario, given that it just cannot be developed as a residential subdivision.
Anything further? All right, seeing none, I'm going to motion to close the public hearing, set a decision date for December 18th.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Second.
What?
Did you ask for a vote?
I second it.
There was a
thought
second,
you
I
did.
said all in favor.
Oh, I didn't hear you're all in favor, sorry. That's why I seconded it again.
Okay, all right, the next item on our agenda is Resolution 958. It's a notice of completion, final supplemental generic environmental impact statement or FSGEIS on 772 North Forest Road, 385 Maple Road, 391 Maple Road. Again, this is the notice of completion. I'm going to motion to adopt the findings associated with the FGEIS at this time.
Second.
Sorry, not the findings. The notice of completion associated with my readdress my motion. I'm going to motion to accept the notice of completion associated with the final
And
supplemental.
I will second the notice of completion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Next item on the agenda is Resolution 595. It's the seeker determination on 2350 Sweet Home Road, Z2016-16_D and 7-2017-11_B. I'm going to first motion to adopt the findings associated with that seeker determination.
Second.
On the seeker, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, now on Resolution 960, which is the adoption to amend the declaration of restrictions required for zoning on 2350 Sweet Home Road, Z-2016-16D and Z-2017-16B. I'm going to motion, I'll make a motion on the adoption at first.
Second.
On the question, anybody want some? I'm going to ask the town clerk for a voice vote on this, please.
Supervisor Culpa,
Yes.
Deputy Supervisor Buckeye,
Yes.
Councilmember Berger,
Yes.
Councilmember Lavin,
No.
and Councilmember Zuccalla.
No. The next item on the agenda are personal appointments. There are none on this evening's agenda. And so I'm going to motion open public expression at this time.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We do have a list. I'm going to go through that as it hasn't been expired. Todd Craigs is next on the list.
My name is Todd Craigs. I live at 1974 Langdon Road, Ransomville. I am the incumbent hauler of the Amherst sewer sludge.
I'm sorry, can you pull the microphone down a
It
little
would
bit?
help if the audience was quiet. Unfortunately, the acoustics are not good.
Okay,
Continue,
how am I doing?
please.
So, what I want to do is, I put a packet, I did not, but I brought packets for each and every one of you. And I'm not sure if you're aware of the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Act administration. So, what I'm trying to say to you guys is I just want to give you a little bit of knowledge. All trucking companies with a gross vehicle weight of GVW of 26,000 pounds or more are regulated by a federal agency, Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. All trucks related in accidents or violations are reported to and kept in compliance safety accountability, noted as the CSA. This is all public knowledge, and you can look at the CSA website. At that time, you can look that up with a DOT number. You can vet your contractors, any of your trucking contractors with the town. What I want to do is a side-by-side comparison with the low bidder and myself, which was not the low bidder, but the mid bidder. The national average of out-of-service rate is 21.4%. What I want to explain to you about the rate is, or being out of service, is if you get pulled over with a DOT, there's something wrong with your truck, they put you out of service. You do not move that truck until it's incompliant. The low bidder, Stancor, is at 55.6%. It's over 50%. Craigco, I am the owner of Craigco, is at 14.3%. I pride myself in this average.
Also, in the last 24 months, and this goes on every 24 months, and it's a daily updated. Stancor had 38 violations. Each violation has a point value, whether it be a light out, no brakes, driving without a license, no medical card, whatever you have you. He had 115 points. Craigco had 3. Again, I value our safety record. In that same time frame, with our points, we had 7, and that's in 2 years. And I had nothing in 2023. We are all drug tested. We get randomly drug tested. Whenever the phone call comes, we have to go. I'm not only the owner, I'm a driver. I spearheaded that sludge hauling 6 years ago. I showed them how to save money by hauling. Their cans was not, their dumpsters, their sludge hauling dumpsters, they were only hauling about 11 ton on average. I told them I would buy the dumpsters out of my pocket and show them that I could haul you five more ton per load, cutting down the loads from 1,500 loads a year. I'm down to 1,040. Now, the difference in the bid is $33.34, me being higher. My record speaks for itself. If you want to put an unsafe CDL company that's driving your sludge just because they have a truck and put them on your highways, you have serious liabilities.
So Mr. Craigs, I think the town board's content to pull this out of our consent agenda and have a conversation with you.
Yes.
Before the next meeting. But it's going to be imperative that we actually set up an appointment to discuss this matter within the next week and a half.
Anytime you want, I'll be here.
So that's what we'll do. We'll pull it tonight, but we have to have this conversation right away, obviously.
You name the day, time, I'll be there.
Okay.
But I just wanted to give you the knowledge, and I don't know if you know how to even look up or vet your trucking companies.
I appreciate the comments you've made here. Obviously, you've had a working relationship with the town. So out of respect to that, we'll have a conversation over the next week and a half or so. Okay?
One question. Did you guys get your packets?
Yes.
I tried to highlight the seriousness of it and the numbers. I just wanted you to.
Yes.
Okay.
Understood.
Great. Awesome. So you'll be reaching out to me?
My office will contact you, yes.
Okay.
Is your contact information in that packet?
I believe it. You know what?
I think you signed it,
Can you
no
write it on
phone
your
number.
contact information down on one of those pages, please?
No, he signed it.
Okay. I don't remember seeing an email or a cell number.
It was hand delivered, and he didn't write it on this.
Sir, I have one. I'm
Sure.
about to go out of town here on Wednesday. I can send a representative in my behalf.
I'll call tomorrow and we can
That'd be great.
discuss.
I will come here tomorrow if you need me to be here.
All right, thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for your time.
Okay, Judith Battaglia, you here?
They already spoke.
Tom Mislin? Kathleen Murphy?
She spoke.
Karen Salzano? I don't know if I, okay, please, you're next. So if you would like to come forward.
When I heard of the tax hike, I got really
Can you
upset.
pull the mic down, please? You just gotta state your name and address for the
Karen
record.
Salzrulo, 12 Fairwoods Drive. I heard of the tax hike. I got really upset. I started calling your offices. I won't mention names. I was cut off. I left messages, didn't hear. I went up the chain. Ryan's office, Mark Polenkar's, Kathy Hochul's. Kathy Hochul totally dismissed my questions. I have emails to prove everything. Bottom line, I want to stay in Amherst. I'm retired. I'm working 2 part-time jobs just to maintain my mortgage. I can't do it if you get that hike. I'm very upset. I'm emotional. I hear what everybody says. I echo all their comments. What can you do to help me? Because I'm going to have to leave Amherst.
So, again, we do have assistance programs within the town. They are available. They are something that my staff, that our assessor's office and my staff and our tax collector's office can take care of or can work with you on.
But then why didn't anybody return my calls?
I don't know. I can't speak to that. All I can tell you is that we can deal with some of those items, and we can get help for people who need help. There are availabilities for all of those items. So we'll have somebody set up a call with you as early as tomorrow.
And all I have to say left is when I voted for people who said we'd keep taxes lower, and I haven't seen that, just constantly gone up.
I understand. Look, I think people think that this is just an easy, nonchalant thing, right? I will tell you, like, when we have to deal with this stuff, I made myself sick over this budget.
I don't know how
Physically sick. The reality is this town ran 6 years of budget deficits prior to me coming into office and drained our reserves. Prior to that, there was a very steep tax decrease, and it resulted in termination of close to 30% removal of 30% of our town positions and town service positions. When we get into budget, budget is, it's a tough thing, right? People think that it's an input, and oftentimes budget's an output. Truth be told, 22 to 23, we held 17 vacant police officer positions. In 23, we had to fill those positions. It's $1.7 million to hire those positions. We talk about streetlights, and people could say, hey, the streetlights don't make any sense. The bottom line is the tariff on the streetlight kept going up. We had little to no control because we were with National Grid. It was a one-way relationship, and we had to do something because at the end of the day, the cost-benefit analysis that everybody says we don't do, the cost-benefit analysis shows definitive savings, and we have to move forward. But you have to bite bullets when you do those things, and there's cost up front.
I mean, 11.4, that's killing us. You're not going to have anybody left in Amherst, either the very rich.
Look, I get it. I'm in the same boat. I'm in the same boat. I have to pay a couple $100 tax increase just like everybody else, and it's not easy.
It's not.
It's not easy. And anybody who knows, my family's on a single income as well. Now, the reality is there are costs to doing the business that we do here in town. And there are costs embedded in the practices that we have. And regardless of the Central Park project and the mall project at the moment, what we have and what we have to deal with are surging costs of the sewer treatment plant. It's the second largest treatment plant in Erie County. We've had to deal with increased costs in everything from personnel to buying materials.
I can understand that, and I'm
So-
sure everybody else could. But what about moderation?
But again, the question of moderation comes when we had an opportunity last year. We said, look, instead of sitting on a fat reserve, let's use the reserve to keep things lower. This year's reserve's not what it was. We have hired positions. We don't have the surplus that we've run in years past. And we balance a budget. We could run a deficit, or I could budget for it to come out of reserves and take our reserves below 10%. We've put our own statute in place that said 10%. So I understand the philosophy, but I also understand that sometimes you have to deal with finance as they are, and you can't just escape it by running deficits.
I'm not asking you to run deficits. All I'm saying is what the decisions made has affected me terribly, and I'm sure all these other people. And when people go to run for office, they shouldn't say lower taxes, because it never happens.
Understood.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Sharon Esterbrook.
I think a lot of people spoke. Maybe we ought to just ask people to
Shelley,
line up.
you're next on the list. Shelley.
And Shelley, I just want to make it clear, I wanted you to speak during public expression, not during a hearing.
And just to make it clear, the only reason I read that was because they were talking about transparency, and I thought Sean's resolution was perfect to read it at that moment so they could hear it, because they were here. That's why. So I appreciate that, Jackie. I won't do it again. Anyway, Shelley Schratz, you know who I am. There's a lot going on in the town, and we all know that. There was a meeting, okay, a couple days ago. Debbie, I think Brian wasn't here, or Brian was here, and Jackie was late. So my question is, and you probably won't give me an answer, you supported his resolution, but not the resolution about the budget, because you weren't here yet. And I watched it on the computer. And I thought, now what was the difference in the two resolutions, that it was okay to vote for Sean's, but we had to wait, you had to wait for that? And in the end, I figured it out. Correct me if I'm wrong. Debbie was a no vote. You needed Jackie to be here. I used to sit in those, when we had work sessions, the difference between our work sessions and maybe yours, and I'm not in them, is we talked to each other. We had transparency, and we knew what the people wanted. So that's all I'm going to say, and I'm saying moving forward, you need to be more transparent with the public so they don't walk out and say, what is with these people? And you guys need to talk. Say, I have no comment, I have no statement, because you know what they say out there? You guys are sleeping, you don't care. So I'm just telling you, and I know you care, but speak, tell them, ask them questions, engage them. That's all I'm saying.
Andrea Morgante.
I'm short. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good evening. My name is Andrea Morganti. I live at 253 Woodshire Court. And I want to thank you, Mr. Culpa, and the town board for giving me the opportunity to provide public comments. I'm new at this, and I request that you respond to my questions tonight, but in my email address that I will be providing to you, if that's all right.
Sure.
I have some questions because I'm trying to educate myself about town government. I wanted to know, what does a parliamentarian do? I understand that the town attorney and the parliamentarian are the same person. Does this mean that the town attorney receives an additional stipend or fee for this position? Where can I find the attachments that were stated in the resolution of the minutes? Are these on the town website? Because I could not locate them. When designating the official town depositories, is this the normal operating accounts, or does this include private reserve accounts? Also, who does the town use as their official depository, as I could not find that in the town minutes of January 2023? I believe the town board must review the procurement and investment policies. Does our town have these policies, and are they available online for the public to review? The town has chosen the Amherst Bee as the official newspaper. At the October 2nd, 2023 meeting, it was indicated that the Amherst Bee would be reporting the date and time for the budget. However, I went through all the Amherst Bee notifications. I could not locate this notification of the budget hearing. However, I did find it on an obscure website called Track Us, and that was done on September 18th. My last question is, annually, the town approves a bond for the supervisor, deputy supervisor, director of finance, comptroller, town clerk, judges, and highway superintendent. Why are these the only positions that are covered? Is the bond only for those who handle money? And if not, then what is the purpose of the blanket bond, and what is the cost of this bond? I apologize, I wrote all over my notes, so if you don't mind, I would like to email this in to you if that's your approval.
That's fine.
Thank you so much.
No problem. Kimberly Gable.
Good evening, Kimberly Gable. I live on President's Walk in Williamsville.
Can you lift the microphone up?
Sure. Better? All right. I was instructed by my father not to talk too close to the mic because then you lose, it distorts. So, good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight, members of the board, as well as our residents that are still hanging in here this evening. 2 weeks ago, I stood on the steps of this building and spoke to the local news outlets about how disillusioning it was to be faced with this 11.42% increase in our property taxes. Again, at the issue of being very redundant, it was a blindsiding thing for me. In the sense that our economy is tough, and with inflation outpacing raises in income, many of us had to make adjustments to our family budgets, and I kind of feel like the town government should have to work within a more stringent budget as well. Maybe rein in some of the more loftier plans for a future date when we've recovered a little more financial stability. One thing that the COVID years allowed me to do was to take the time to read more. I read on economics, politics, government, health. I joined the folks waking up to what was really going on around us politically, fiscally, and in regards to policy on a national level and a state level, and I was frustrated and disagreed with quite a bit, but I felt powerless to do anything about it, aside from exercising my civic duty as always to vote. My fervent hope during the last couple of years was that perhaps I could see some results on the local level. This is my town, these are my people, right? So we desperately need transparency and accountability within our governments at all levels. I feel we can achieve those goals within our own town. Board Member Lavin's transparency provisions will help us to keep track of monthly monitoring of how actual revenues and expenditures compare to the budgeted figures, but we need additional measures to help assure our residents that their needs are actually being met for the high amount of taxes that we already pay. Now, I noted there's like 37 different boards, committees, commissions within the town. I honestly had no idea that all of these boards and committees existed, let alone that laypersons could join. I think this would be an excellent way for more community involvement in our town. I don't believe that we have a Citizens Advisory Committee in existence any longer, but perhaps the Open Government Advisory Board would be a similar fit. Anyhow, could the board please provide me with some information on the following? How could one apply to become a community or board member? Can individuals participate in more than one? I assume these are all voluntary positions. How often do they meet? Does the chair of each committee or board decide on the schedule? How is the chair decided? I noticed that many of the committees only have a town board member as a liaison, but the group has no chair or vice chair. Is that normal? Do each of the committees set their own terms of renewal of membership, annual, biannual? Does the town board have final say on all committee or board memberships? And what qualifications are required to become a member? Can I query the board in regards to current openings, and how would I accomplish this? In the interest of brevity, I'll provide copies to each of the members of the board with my questions, and I have included my email and my mailing address for response to those queries so that we don't have to take additional time now. I think many may be interested in joining and may be unaware that such opportunities exist, just as I was. So thank you for your time and consideration.
Okay, thank you. Sure.
Hi. Just to make a point, right now, the town of Amherst, we merged a number of different committees because we had difficulty getting volunteers to serve on many of these committees. You are not paid, and many of these committees have a great deal of work and effort involved in them. We combined a number of committees, of which I am a liaison right now, into something called AgFab. I hate the name, but it was the name I got stuck with. It's the Amherst Government Financial Advisory Board, AgFab. And that is the committee composed of volunteers, some of whom have financial backgrounds, some who don't. We did that on purpose to make sure that we would represent the vast majority of the community. And we look at the town budget. We look at other issues. I know that the finance people are here because we meet once a month. That's a typical committee. If you have a background in finance or you're interested in being involved in any of the committees that you see on town minutes, they're right here in the minutes. It's
Well, the minute list is, the agenda is not accurate with some of the changes we've made over the year.
Please.
But we do regularly put calls out in the Amherst Bee looking for volunteers as well.
Send one of us an email with a resume, and we'll get back to you and ask you what committees you might be interested in volunteering on. If there's an opening, we'll find a way to get you in.
Okay, thanks, Mike. The gonna always send a resume.
I think you should be
Forget where I
about
am.
done.
Alicia Schreier.
She spoke.
Sorry.
Oh, wait, I got a few
Kimberly Rand.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak here. I also have a lot of concerns regarding the budget increases, pretty much everybody here. The fact that it passed without any knowledge from the residents is incomprehensible to me and to the people here. It's such a significant increase that goes over 8% of what is really allowable by state for a per year increase. Many residents are on fixed incomes and cannot afford this increase. Buying out National Grid to the tune of $30 million is, to me, exorbitant and extreme. National Grid has been very responsible in producing energy to the residents and the street operations for this town as long as it's been around. You have a special interest company that does not responsibly adhere to when people are calling for street light fixtures. I've gone for 4 months without a street light being fixed. That is a liability that should not occur. The town is responsible because they bought out this contract. I also have a problem with, why are we paying for the developers' new mall, whatever their plan is? That should be done by the developers and not the taxpayers of this town.
If you're
I mean,
if you're talking about the mall, I'm gonna clarify. The mall purchase has to be backed by, it has to be a revenue backed bond, which means we have to take in the same amount of money or more than what we buy it for.
But who's asking for that? We have more stores than we need in this town. I mean, why are we going to take an additional expense that we can't even afford to live in this town for a lot of residents?
Understood. Like I just said, though, it has to be a revenue-backed bond, which means we have to know that we have more revenue coming in than we have expense going out.
Right.
And it's not just commercial. Point
No,
blank.
I just want to noted that.
And it's residential as well. I mean, that's a clear stipulation on the mall project. So I understand there's a couple people who've said the mall and the expense of the mall, and the reality is the mall property, once the mall's been taken by eminent domain and the leases have expired, is worth more than is current. So the sellback has to offset the purchase, or we can't purchase. Okay, I'm sorry,
All
continue.
right, no, I just wanted to voice the concerns of most people here. I know a lot of people are so upset that it's becoming unaffordable to live in Amherst. Amherst is the second highest town in New York State, and it's right up there in the country in terms of revenue taxes that people pay. I'm very disappointed that our increase has been so significant without, proper notification to the residents that live here. So that's all I had to say.
All right, thank you. If I'm missing something on the sheets, I apologize. I'm just going to open it up at this point to anybody who wants to come forward to the mic. And again, I'm just going to ask you to state your name and address for record.
Yes, my name is Gina Gentry, and I'm 65 Bissell Drive. I actually wasn't planning on coming here tonight to speak. I got a text that this is what was going on and decided to leave my family and come up here. So first of all, I just want to show you a picture, if I may approach the board really quick. Well, not like I can show you from here.
Okay.
That's 6 of us. Those are my few beautiful children that I have to afford. I have to pay for them for their needs and their wants. And if there's something that's outside of our budget, I don't get it for them. If there's something that I can't afford, I don't pay for them. I don't pay for it because it's outside of what my living means is. And I understand that this is something that people have been harping on you for the past 3 hours, but it's enough that people are pissed off, and excuse my language. You are elected officials, and no disrespect, Mr. Culpa, but sitting here listening to you interrupt your constituents when they're speaking is very unprofessional as an elected official. Your goal is not to get your point across. Your goal is to listen to the constituents that are here telling you that one woman that was crying, I met her out in the hall and she said she's going to lose her house. I understand that it affects you, but you're getting raises. Someone that's on a fixed income is not.
Who's getting a raise? I've
You're
been on a
not getting
raise in
raises?
6 years.
No.
This town staff gets raises, yes.
Okay,
So
so those are the raises that don't need to go in effect. Any extra positions that you've somehow made don't need to go in. Buying a mall, the reason the mall's dying is because small businesses are dying, and the reason small businesses are dying is because they can't afford what the town is putting in place for tax increases.
Okay.
And the other thing, and I'll leave it at this because I will get a better written statement out for the next time when I get more research back on everything. But for all of you that are out there, the reason emails aren't being returned and phone calls is because it's not his year to be elected in. So 2025 is when they will start responding. Thank you.
Matt Plunkett, 299 North Hill Drive, Unit B. I know there's an 11.4% tax hike this year. And don't forget, that's on top of just a couple of years ago, a 13.4% hike in the general town tax. These tax hikes have been going on for years and years and years. They're covered up. And the typical mantra is, we didn't raise the rate. The rate doesn't matter a bit. All that matters is the levy and how much the town is spending. This town spends way too much. And they've added numerous jobs in this town at salaries of well over $100,000 a year. That's been well documented. And nobody even knows what those people do for a living, including the people sitting up there. That's my guess. And, you know, the other thing, Mr. Culpa, for you to sit here, people are coming up here and talking to you about taxes. You turn around and make the story about you, how hard it is for you to do the tax bill. Don't interrupt. For once in your life, don't interrupt and let somebody finish, okay? You know, you can, oh, I was sick. I was sick. Well, if you're sick doing the budget, do yourself a favor and do the taxpayers a bigger favor and resign.
Joe Vitovich, 35 Bucyrus. First, I want to inform the residents here some background on it. It's on the Department of Economic Development. That was created by a town board resolution in February 2020. From then, the board or the department has spent about $1.3 million in salaries and expenses, and will for 2024 have its budget reach almost $700,000. That's almost 3 times what it was for the first 2 years. The department is also required by town law to post yearly reports on its progress. The only report posted is that was written in 2023 by an outside consultant for a fee of $83,000. And the department did not pay for this directly. It came instead from a 2021 Planning Board Capital Improvement Program. Hidden under the section of P1 for comprehensive planning, the consultant fee was charged to the line item KP 2105. When I searched the town budget for this, I could not find it. I was then told that these items are not listed there. So now we have consultant fees hidden from public view. And the question arises, how many more of these cases are hidden charges are there in our 11% tax hike budget? I then looked at the department plan. One of the 6 objectives it mentions was formalizing staffing by retaining the director and hiring 4 more positions. One for small business, an ombudsman, a market director, and a department deputy director. Seeing the exponential rise in their budget, I see they did meet that objective very well. Other objectives talk about continually gathering more data, holding more meetings, creating more databases, blah, blah, blah. It says nothing related to economic growth. When I questioned the department director on what was being worked on and what results they had, I was told they were still working on the master plan. 3 years in, and all we have to show for that is $2 million and a packet of paper and no jobs. It's time to cut our losses and work on getting the budget back under control. We don't need endless, meaningless reports and bureaucrats that don't have a clue on what to do next. Also, we've been talking about the mall project. I wanted to comment on that. So far, I've heard estimates from different meetings that it's going to cost a total of maybe $50 million to get it ready to be sold off. That'll include $10 million in demolition, $17 million for sewers and roads, and $24 million to buy the initial land. And that's given the fact that now, who are we going to sell it to? If somebody doesn't buy it, the town is stuck on the hook for $50 million.
Go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Mary Jane Zach, and I have resided in the town of Amherst since 1972.
Can you lean into the microphone? Because no one can hear you. Yeah, let me help.
So since 1972, I have been a resident in the town of Amherst, which I truly love. So listening this evening very attentively very concerned about who we are. I've come to the conclusion that I'd like to share as one person. It is not the increase in the taxes. It's your decision of what you're going to do with these monies. Very clearly tonight, we have heard what we don't want. Have you heard it? Have you listened? I'm not asking anyone specifically. But the rationale seems to be the consensus of the people here of what they do not want. Will you please listen to this plea of unnecessary spending for things they don't want? We don't want it. I don't know why this is so difficult. And yet, there's so many good points, but again, perhaps one of the officials here might pick on one item as opposed to listening to the many things we do not want and then turn our words around to your liking and make us look somewhat foolish. Although the faces on this board, that is not their intention. But collectively, when you meet privately, this is the results that we're getting. So I am asking, I don't know how we could fix this when people come in and ask for variances, the different things that they ask for, to be cautious of what the two men that just recently left the podium, what they're asking for is not really good for the town of Amherst. They're selling something that is for them, not for us. So again, when you make your decisions, think about what we do not want very clearly stated tonight. Thank you so much.
Hello, I'm Christina Coyle-Lenz from Snyder, and I want to say good evening and thank you for your service. I heard a theme all throughout the evening, and it's one that's disturbing. It's one of a gap in transparency. And when we, the residents, go, and it was referenced, people that were here that spoke to you said they voted for each and every one of you. That means that you owe us that. You owe us full transparency in all that you do. You owe us efficiency. You owe us effectiveness in our government. And I want to go to something that I heard tonight in the conversation about the Westwood site. I heard a term that I hadn't heard before, planned unit development. And the essence of planned unit development removes transparency from the people. And when I first became engaged with the town of Amherst processes, if you will, it was because of a circumstance that we faced in our neighborhood that is still not resolved. And there was a particular meeting at which one of our representatives attended a work session. And there was a resolution put forth, and I have to back this up so I can see it and make it bigger. And this was from the April 20th Planning Board meeting. I was able to find this in my phone by going into the meetings. And basically what the town, I don't know, I think it came from the town board and then it went to the planning board. And it was an effort to have the town of Amherst exempt from all of their own rules for any development. Okay, did you guys all get that? So if you're exempt from your own rules for development and you're developing Westwood, what does that mean to us? It means a lack of transparency, a wholesale lack of transparency. And we're the ones that are now being we're expected to pay for this with these tax increases from the last, how many years? It's almost 33%, okay? That's absolutely unacceptable to us as residents. So if you look at the idea of what some of these folks have mentioned, it's easy, spend less. I have a budget that I manage for my home, and I have a budget I'm held to at work. And I have to stick to that. You make the budget at the beginning of the year. If you don't have the money, you don't go and put $45 million into a real estate project on behalf of the town to build a beautiful asset. Yes, it might be a beautiful asset, but you know what? How else might it be conceived that it could produce revenue? Someone mentioned it, a golf course. And that would largely leave the zoning the same, and it would be a revenue-producing entity. And then secondly, there was something else Supervisor Culpa mentioned, that in order to have this Boulevard Mall project work, you have to have bonds, and you have to have revenue-backed bonds, which means you're looking for revenue, which is another reason why that 11% came in. Because the only place that a town gets revenue is from the people. We pay taxes, we fund all of this. I realize some of the money comes from other branches of government, but at the same time, where do they get their money from? The people. Really, so what I have to say in conclusion with this is that you really have to think about, and by the way, thank you for voting no on that budget. I really and truly appreciate that. I really appreciate that very, very much. It's about transparency. It's not taking this resolution that was attempted to be pushed through and replacing it with a PUD or a PUD, and then, all of this rapid spending. We love Amherst. That's why we're here, okay? And so please do all that you can to bring transparency to the town. And had this increase of 11%, had this budget come out before the election, this room might have felt a little bit differently. They wouldn't feel like it was a bait and switch, which right now, it kind of feels like a bait and switch. Thank you.
Anybody further? Seeing none, I'm going to move to close public expression.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
First item on our agenda, or next item on our agenda is a consent agenda. I'm going to ask the town clerk to please read the consent agenda.
Councilmember Berger, 1. Town Attorney, 1, 2, 3. Town Clerk, 1, 2. Assessor, 1. Controller, 1, 2. Contract Compliance, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9. Court, 1. Emergency Services, 1. Engineering, 1, 2, 3, 4. Human Resources, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Planning, 1, 2. Police, 1. Senior Services, 1, 2. Sewer Plant, 16, 1, 2. Youth and Recreation, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Under Communication, 1 is consent, 2 refer to Attorney and Planning, 3 refer to Attorney and Planning, 4 receive and file, 5 refer to Attorney, 6 refer to Attorney, 7 refer to Attorney, 8 refer to Attorney, and 9 refer to Attorney.
Okay, so first, I'm going to motion the consent agenda as it was read.
Second.
On the question, I'm going to motion an amendment to retract Contract Compliance 7.
Second.
All in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
And with that, I'll motion the consent agenda as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We have one item remaining on the agenda this evening. Sorry, 2 items remaining on the agenda this evening.
I lost them.
990.
Okay, because, all right, on Resolution 976, it was removed from consent. I'm going to motion to adjourn that resolution until December 18th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Is that what you meant? Okay. And then on Resolution 994, the resolution stated March 17, 2003, and June 16, 2003, geotechnical services. I'm going to motion the resolution as it appeared in our agenda.
Second.
On the question, when I ask our town clerk for a voice vote, please.
Supervisor Copa.
Yes.
Deputy Supervisor Buckeye.
No.
Councilmember Berger.
Yes.
Councilmember Lavin. Yes. And Councilmember Zucala.
Next item on our agenda is a second round of public expression for anybody who hasn't spoken. Get a motion to open that at this time.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody coming forward?
I don't think there's
Seeing none, I'm going to
anybody.
motion to close public expression.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I'll motion to adjourn the board meeting.